Noah Reed stood frozen outside the glass-walled conference room, his hand still gripping the door handle he hadn't yet turned. Behind him, Evelyn Cross's voice cut through the silence of the empty Friday evening office with a question that made his heart stop. "Are you still upset with me?" He couldn't turn around, couldn't face her, because he wasn't upset. He was drowning. For 8 months, he'd avoided her hallways, her meetings, her very existence. Not because she'd done anything wrong, but because every time he saw her face, he saw her brother's. And Lucas Cross had died because of him. Before we begin this story of guilt, grief, and the unexpected path to redemption, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's dive in. The fluorescent lights of quantum dynamics hummed their monotonous Friday evening song, casting sterile white across empty cubicles and abandoned coffee mugs. Noah Reed moved through the deserted corridors like a ghost haunting his own life, laptop bag weighing heavy on his shoulder, exhaustion settling into his bones with the familiar ache of another 70-hour week. He was 32 years old, but some mornings he felt ancient. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson, his neighbor and emergency babysitter. "Mia's asleep. Left mac and cheese in the fridge for you. You work too hard, Noah." He typed back a quick thank you, guilt twisting in his chest. Mia was 5 now, bright, curious, with her mother's wild curls and stubborn chin. Sarah had been gone for 3 years, cancer stealing her before their daughter was old enough to form lasting memories. Noah had become both parents by necessity, learning to braid hair through YouTube tutorials and master the mysterious politics of kindergarten playdates. But being a single father in a high-pressure tech company meant making impossible choices every single day. The conference room on the 8th floor was his destination. He'd left his presentation notes there during the afternoon's brutal client meeting, the kind of meeting where executives smiled with their teeth and threatened with their silence. Quantum dynamics had been through hell in recent years. A death, a scandal, a complete leadership overhaul. And then Evelyn Cross had arrived. Noah's footsteps slowed as he approached the glass-walled conference room. The lights were still on inside, which was strange. Through the transparent walls, he could see his leather portfolio sitting exactly where he'd left it on the polished table. He reached for the door handle. "Noah." The voice came from behind him, low, precise, feminine. A voice he'd been avoiding for 8 months. His hand froze on the handle, every muscle in his body locked. For a moment, he genuinely considered running, just dropping his hand, walking away, pretending he hadn't heard. He could get the portfolio Monday. He could... "I know you heard me." Slowly, painfully, Noah turned around. Evelyn Cross stood 15 feet away in the corridor, her posture perfect, her dark pantsuit immaculate despite the late hour. At 30 years old, she carried herself with the kind of authority that made seasoned executives uncomfortable. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, emphasizing sharp cheekbones and eyes that missed nothing, eyes currently fixed on him with an intensity that made his throat tight. She looked exactly like her brother. "Ms. Cross." Noah's voice came out steady, professional. Years of corporate survival had taught him to hide everything that mattered. "I was just grabbing my portfolio. Didn't realize anyone was still here." "I'm often here." She moved closer, her heels clicking against polished floor. "I've noticed you're often here too. Late nights, early mornings, weekends." "Project deadlines," he said simply. "Always." Something flickered across her face, an emotion he couldn't quite read. "You've been avoiding me, Noah." It wasn't a question. Evelyn Cross didn't ask questions when she already knew the answers. "I haven't been..." "Don't." The single word cut through his deflection like a blade. "I've been CEO of this company for 8 months. In that time, you've missed every executive meeting I've specifically requested your attendance at. You've declined 4 separate invitations to leadership dinners. You've sent junior team members to present work that should have been presented by you personally." Noah's jaw tightened. "I sent qualified people. The work spoke for itself." "The work has always been excellent. That's not the point." She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could see the faint shadows under her eyes, the tiny tells of her own exhaustion. "You won't even look at me in the hallways. You change direction when you see me coming. So I'm asking you directly, Noah Reed, are you still upset with me? The question hit him like a physical blow. Upset? The word tasted bitter. Ms. Cross, I'm not. Evelyn. Her voice softened slightly. My name is Evelyn, and whatever you think I don't know, whatever you're protecting yourself from, we need to address it. Noah felt the walls closing in. The empty Friday evening suddenly felt like a trap. There's nothing to address. If my work performance has been, your work performance has been exceptional, as it's been for the 7 years you've worked here. She crossed her arms, and something in her posture shifted, less CEO, more human. But you're killing yourself. I've seen the hour logs, Noah. 80, 90-hour weeks. You have a young daughter. When do you see her? The mention of Mia made his chest constrict. My personal life isn't. It is when you're one of the most valuable people in this company and you're burning out in front of me. Evelyn's voice carried a strange note, almost pleading. Talk to me, please. That word, please, from a billionaire CEO was so unexpected that Noah's carefully constructed defenses cracked slightly. Why? The question came out rougher than he intended. Why do you care? Because you matter. She said it like it was obvious. Because you've been carrying something heavy for a very long time, and I think I know what it is. Noah's blood went cold. You don't? The conference room is empty and soundproof. Evelyn gestured to the glass door behind him. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. 5 minutes of honesty, and then if you want to keep avoiding me, I'll respect that. Everything in Noah screamed to refuse, to make a polite excuse and leave, to maintain the safe distance he'd cultivated so carefully. But there was something in Evelyn's eyes, a kind of pain that mirrored his own. Against every instinct, he nodded. But the conference room felt smaller than it should have, despite its wall of windows overlooking the city's glittering Friday night skyline. Noah sat on one side of the long table, Evelyn on the other, as if they were negotiating a contract instead of confronting ghosts. For a long moment, neither spoke. You joined Quantum Dynamics 7 years ago, Evelyn finally said, her voice quiet. Junior project manager, working your way up. By all accounts, brilliant at your job. Detail-oriented, innovative, good with people. Is this a performance review? It's context. She leaned forward slightly. 4 years ago, you were promoted to senior project manager. That same year, you got married. That same year... She paused, and Noah saw her swallow hard. That same year, my brother Lucas was killed in a car accident. The name hung in the air between them like smoke. Noah's hands clenched beneath the table. Ms. Cross, after Lucas died, you requested a transfer to a different division. It was denied. 6 months later, you submitted a resignation letter. Also denied. Evelyn's eyes never left his face. You wanted to leave this company. Why? Personal reasons. Noah. His name on her lips carried a weight of exhaustion. I've read every file related to my brother's death, every email chain, every project timeline, every incident report. Do you know what I found? His throat had gone completely dry. What? Your name. Over and over again. Evelyn's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You were his project manager on the Aurora initiative. You were the one who pushed back when the executives demanded impossible deadlines. You were the one who sent 7 separate emails warning that the team was being overworked to dangerous levels. Noah couldn't breathe. The room tilted. You were also the one, Evelyn continued, each word precise and devastating, who approved the overnight shift the night Lucas drove home exhausted and crashed his car into a barrier on Highway 52. There it was. The truth he'd been running from for 4 years. So I'll ask you again, Evelyn said softly. Are you upset with me? Because I'm the one who inherited my brother's shares and became majority stakeholder. I'm the one who took over this company. I'm the one who kept you here when you clearly wanted to leave. And I need to know, is it anger, resentment, guilt? Noah's control shattered. Guilt. The word ripped out of him like a confession. It's guilt, Ms. Cross. Every single day. Every time I see your face and see his. Every time I stay late because I'm terrified of failing, of cutting corners, of making the same mistake that killed your brother. Noah, I approve that shift. His voice was shaking now, all professional composure gone. I knew Lucas was exhausted. He'd been pulling 18-hour days for 2 weeks straight, but the client deadline was unmovable, and the executives were breathing down my neck, and I thought, he choked on the words. I thought one more night. Just push through one more night, and then we'd make the deadline, and I could give the whole team a break. Evelyn's face had gone pale. I should have said no, Noah continued, the dam broken, 4 years of pain flooding out. I should have pushed back harder, should have refused, should have protected him. Instead, I authorized the shift, and Lucas stayed until 4 in the morning, and then he got in his car, barely able to keep his eyes open, and he died. Evelyn finished the sentence. He couldn't. At 4:47 a.m., my brother's car struck a concrete barrier at 65 miles per hour. The police report said he likely fell asleep at the wheel. I killed him. Noah's voice broke completely. Not intentionally, not directly. But I put him in that car. My approval, my signature on that schedule. Your brother is dead because I wasn't strong enough to stand up to people who valued a deadline over a human life. Tears were burning his eyes now, and he didn't care. Let her see. Let her see exactly what he'd been carrying. So no, Ms. Cross, I'm not upset with you. Noah met her gaze directly for the first time since she'd become CEO. I'm terrified of you because you're his sister, and you have every right to destroy me. And every day I come to this office wondering if today is the day you'll finally do it. Silence filled the conference room like water rising. Evelyn sat completely still, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, worn, creased, clearly read many times. Do you know what this is? She asked quietly. Noah shook his head. This is your resignation letter, the one you submitted 4 years ago, 2 months after Lucas died. She opened it, and even from across the table, Noah could see his own handwriting. Hurried, desperate, barely legible. I found it in my brother's personal files when I took over the company. Would you like me to read it? Please don't. But Evelyn was already reading, her voice steady despite the tears beginning to slide down her cheeks. To whom it may concern, I am formally resigning from my position at Quantum Dynamics, effective immediately. I cannot in good conscience continue working for a company where I failed to protect the people under my care. Lucas Cross was a brilliant engineer, a dedicated team member, and a good person. He trusted me to look out for him, and I failed. I failed him, I failed his family, and I failed everyone who believed I was capable of leadership. I don't deserve this position. I don't deserve to be in a place where my decisions cost lives. Please accept this resignation as the only meaningful accountability I can offer. Evelyn's voice cracked on the last words. She set the letter down carefully. You wrote that at 2 in the morning, 3 weeks after the funeral, she said. I know because it's time-stamped in the company system. Do you remember writing it? Noah's vision was blurred. Yes. Do you remember what happened after you submitted it? It was denied. HR said I was too valuable to lose and that the company couldn't afford my departure during a transition period. That's the official reason. Evelyn wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture so human it made her look suddenly younger. Do you want to know the real reason? What? My brother. She smiled, sad and broken. Lucas kept a personal journal, work notes mostly, but also thoughts about the people he worked with. I found it when I was going through his things. She pulled her phone from her pocket, scrolled for a moment, then began reading. Noah Reed is the kind of manager everyone claims to want, but most companies destroy. He actually fights for us. Today he sent another email to the executives, CCing half the leadership chain, basically telling them that their timeline is unrealistic and unsafe. He does this at least twice a week. Pretty sure it's career suicide, but he keeps doing it anyway. Sarah's sick. I think it's serious, though he doesn't talk about it much, and he's got a baby at home, and he's still staying late to make sure none of us have to. Sometimes I wonder if he knows how much that means. Noah's hands were covering his face now, shoulders shaking. Evelyn's voice continued, relentless and gentle all at once. Had a long talk with Noah today about the Aurora deadline. He's stressed in a way I've never seen. Said the executives are demanding the impossible, and he's caught between protecting the team and keeping his job. I told him we could push through. I told him I could handle it. I was wrong to say that. Noah looked like he wanted to refuse, but I insisted. He's too good a person to override what his team says they want, even when he knows better. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. That entry is dated 2 days before Lucas died. Noah couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight of 4 years was crushing him. So when you submitted your resignation, Evelyn said softly, I read it. I read Lucas's journal. I read every email you'd sent fighting for your team, and I understood something that you clearly don't. She stood up, walked around the table, and sat down directly beside him. You didn't kill my brother, Noah. You tried to save him. Multiple times. In writing. With witnesses. You put your career on the line over and over again to protect your people, and you were overruled by executives who cared more about client relationships than human beings. But I approved the shift because Lucas told you he could handle it, because you'd been backed into a corner by people with more power than you, because this company's entire culture was built on the idea that success requires sacrifice. Evelyn's voice hardened. I've spent 8 months investigating everything that happened leading up to my brother's death. You know what I found? A pattern, years of dangerous working conditions, teams pushed beyond reasonable limits, managers punished for pushing back, a systemic failure that made what happened to Lucas inevitable. She reached over and gently pulled Noah's hands from his face, forcing him to look at her. You were trying to swim against a riptide, Noah. And when it pulled you under, you blamed yourself for drowning instead of blaming the people who threw you in the ocean. He's still dead. Noah's voice was raw. All the explanations in the world don't change that. No, Evelyn agreed. They don't. Lucas is gone, and nothing will bring him back. But destroying yourself won't honor his memory. It'll just add another casualty to a tragedy that's already taken too much. Why are you telling me this? Noah searched her face, desperate to understand. Why didn't you just fire me? Let me go. Why keep me here? Because Lucas believed in you. Because when I took over this company, I made a promise to fix everything that was broken, and I can't do that alone. Evelyn's grip on his hands tightened. I kept you here because you're exactly the kind of person this company needs. Someone who fights for what's right, even when it costs them. Someone who carries responsibility with integrity. Someone who loved my brother enough to grieve this deeply. I can't. Noah's voice broke again. Every time I see you, I see him. It hurts too much. I know. Evelyn's tears were flowing freely now. Do you think I don't see Lucas every time I look in the mirror? Do you think I don't carry my own guilt? What could you possibly feel guilty about? Everything. The word came out fierce. I'm the one who encouraged Lucas to take the job here in the first place. I'm the one who told him that working at a prestigious tech company would open doors for him. I'm the one who said he should prove himself, work harder than everyone else, show them what he was capable of. Her voice cracked. The last conversation I had with my brother, he called me at midnight, exhausted, saying he didn't know how much longer he could keep up the pace. And do you know what I said? Evelyn's face twisted with anguish. I said, just a little longer. I said, success requires sacrifice. I said all the same things this toxic culture says, because I believe them. I was so focused on achievement and ambition that I didn't see I was encouraging him to destroy himself. Evelyn, so yes, Noah, I understand guilt. I understand carrying the weight of decisions you'd give anything to undo. And I understand that you've been punishing yourself for 4 years, working yourself to death because you think you deserve to suffer. She squeezed his hands almost painfully. But I didn't become CEO of this company to watch another good person sacrifice themselves on the altar of corporate ambition. I became CEO to burn that altar down. Noah stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time in 8 months, not as Lucas's sister, not as the billionaire CEO, but as someone just as broken and determined as he was. What do you want from me? He asked. Help. The answer was immediate. I'm trying to rebuild this company's entire culture, strip away the toxic expectations, the unsustainable deadlines, the mentality that treats people as disposable resources. I've fired 3 executives already, and I'm just getting started. But I need people who understand what's at stake. People who've lived through the cost of doing things wrong. You want me to help you reform the company that killed your brother? I want you to help me make sure no one else's brother dies the way Lucas did. Evelyn's eyes were fierce now, grief transforming into purpose. I want you to help me build the kind of workplace Lucas deserved, the kind you've been fighting for since before I knew your name. I don't know if I can. You can. Her certainty was absolute. You already have been. Every email pushing back on unrealistic demands, every time you've sent your team home at reasonable hours despite executive pressure, every project you've delivered excellently while protecting your people's well-being. You've been fighting this fight alone for years, Noah. I'm just asking you to let me fight it with you. Noah looked down at their joined hands, hers small and steady, his scarred and trembling. For 4 years, he'd been drowning in isolation, believing he had to carry his guilt alone. The idea of sharing that burden felt impossible, but also necessary. I'm not good at this, he said quietly. The vulnerability thing, the asking for help thing. I've been doing everything alone since Sarah died. I know. Evelyn's voice softened. I've read your file, Noah. I know you're a widowed single father. I know you've been carrying impossible weight with no support system. I know you think you have to be strong enough to survive anything. Someone has to take care of Mia, and someone has to take care of you. The gentle firmness in her voice reminded him of Sarah, that particular tone she'd used when he was being stubborn about accepting help. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't protect your daughter if you work yourself to death the way Lucas did. The parallel hit hard. He'd been doing exactly what killed Lucas, pushing himself past sustainable limits, believing that sacrifice proved dedication. What would this look like? Noah asked. Practically, if I actually agreed to work with you on changing the company culture. Evelyn pulled her hands back, shifting into professional mode with visible effort. First, reasonable working hours. No more 80-hour weeks. I want you home with your daughter at a time when she's actually awake to see you. The workload doesn't change just because then we change the workload, or we hire more people, or we adjust client expectations. Her tone left no room for argument. This is non-negotiable, Noah. Part of changing the culture means leadership has to model sustainable practices. Okay, he said slowly. What else? I want you on a task force I'm forming. People from different levels of the company who've experienced the toxic patterns firsthand. We're going to identify systemic problems and redesign policies from the ground up. That sounds like more work, not less. It's different work, important work, the kind that actually matters. Evelyn met his eyes. And it's work we'll do during normal business hours, with appropriate compensation and support. No more volunteering your evenings and weekends because you think suffering proves commitment. Noah felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest, hope, maybe. Or just the first tiny breath after years of drowning. Why me specifically, he asked. You could pull anyone for this task force. Because you know what's broken. Because you've been fighting against it for years. Because my brother trusted you. Evelyn's expression softened. And because I think we understand each other in a way most people can't. We've both lost someone we love to this industry's cruelty. We both carry guilt that won't let us rest. Maybe we can transform that into something meaningful. Outside the conference room windows, the city glittered with Friday night possibilities, people finishing work at reasonable hours, going home to families, living lives that weren't consumed by corporate demands. Noah wanted that. He'd wanted it for years but hadn't believed he deserved it. What about the guilt? He asked quietly. Does it ever stop? I don't know. Evelyn's honesty was stark. But I think maybe it transforms, becomes less about punishing ourselves and more about honoring the people we lost by building something better. Lucas would have liked that. He would have loved it. Her smile was sad and genuine. My brother believed in making things better. That's why he became an engineer. He wanted to solve problems, improve systems, help people. The cruel irony is that the system killed him instead. Then we fixed the system. Yeah, Evelyn nodded. We fixed the system. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared grief and tentative alliance settling around them. "I should get home," Noah finally said. "Mia will wake up early tomorrow, and Mrs. Patterson deserves to get home at a reasonable hour for once." "How old is Mia now?" 5. Kindergarten, currently obsessed with dinosaurs and convinced she's going to be a paleontologist. Sarah would be proud. The mention of his wife's name from Evelyn's mouth should have felt intrusive, but somehow it didn't. She'd done her research. She understood the full scope of his life. "She would have fought alongside you," Noah said. Sarah hated corporate cultures that chewed people up. She was a social worker, saw too many families destroyed by impossible working conditions. "I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. Once she got past being intimidated by the billionaire thing." Evelyn laughed, a real genuine sound that transformed her entire face. "I'm really not that intimidating once you get to know me." "You're absolutely terrifying." "Good." She stood up and Noah followed. Terror keeps the executives in line. They walked toward the door together, and Noah grabbed his leather portfolio from where it sat on the conference table, the original reason he'd come to this floor, a lifetime ago. "Noah?" Evelyn's voice stopped him at the threshold. He turned back. "Thank you," she said simply, "for telling me the truth, for trusting me with your grief. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for not destroying me. I'm not interested in destruction anymore." Her expression was resolute. "Only rebuilding. Starting Monday, we begin changing this company. But tonight, go home. Hug your daughter. Get some sleep. Take care of yourself." "You too," Noah said. "When was the last time you left the office before midnight?" Evelyn's guilty expression was answer enough. "We're both works in progress," she admitted. "Then we'll figure it out together." The words hung between them. A promise, a partnership, a fragile beginning. Noah walked to the elevator with something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Not happiness exactly. Not peace, but maybe the first crack in the wall of guilt he'd built around himself. A tiny opening where light could start seeping through. When he reached the parking garage, his phone buzzed again. A text from Evelyn. "Seriously, go home. That's a direct order from your CEO." Despite everything, he smiled. The drive home took 30 minutes through light Friday night traffic. Noah kept the radio off, letting his thoughts settle. The conversation played through his mind on loop. Evelyn's tears, Lucas's journal entries, the weight of truths finally spoken aloud. His apartment was dark when he arrived, except for the lamp Mrs. Patterson always left on in the living room. She was dozing on the couch, a knitting project in her lap. "Noah!" She startled awake, then smiled. "You're home earlier than usual." "Trying to turn over a new leaf." He helped her gather her things. "How was Mia?" "Perfect, as always." Though she insisted on hearing 3 different dinosaur books before bed. Mrs. Patterson patted his arm. "You look tired, dear. Are you taking care of yourself?" "Working on it." After she left, Noah moved quietly through the apartment, checking on his daughter. Mia was sprawled across her bed, covers kicked off, surrounded by plastic dinosaurs. She looked so much like Sarah in sleep, the same peaceful expression, the same wild curls fanned across the pillow. He carefully pulled the covers back over her, moved a triceratops that was digging into her back, and kissed her forehead. "Love you, baby," he whispered. Mia mumbled something about velociraptors and didn't wake up. In his own room, Noah sat on the edge of his bed, still in his work clothes, and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back. The conversation with Evelyn had cracked something open inside him. Years of grief and guilt and exhaustion finally acknowledged instead of buried. Lucas's face rose in his memory. Not the way it had haunted him for years, accusatory and dying, but as he'd actually been. Enthusiastic, brilliant, kind. A man who'd believed in Noah's leadership even when Noah didn't believe in himself. "You didn't kill him," Evelyn had said. "You tried to save him." Could that be true? Could he separate his genuine failure, not pushing back harder, not refusing the overnight shift, from the systemic forces that had made that failure almost inevitable? Noah pulled out his phone and opened his photo gallery. He scrolled back 4 years until he found what he was looking for. A team photo from the Aurora project launch. Lucas grinning in the middle, Noah standing slightly behind him, the whole team looking exhausted but proud. Lucas had sent him a message that day. "Thanks for fighting for us, boss. We couldn't have done this without you." Noah had never been able to look at that message after Lucas died. Now he read it again and again, letting himself remember that before the tragedy, there had been trust, respect, a working relationship built on genuine care. "We're going to fix it," he thought, sending the words out to wherever Lucas might be. "Evelyn and I are going to make sure your death means something. We're going to change the whole damn system." It wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough to balance the loss of a life. But maybe it was something. Noah changed into pajamas, set his alarm for a civilized hour for the first time in months, and got into bed. Sleep didn't come immediately. His mind was too full of everything that had shifted tonight. But when he finally drifted off, it was without the usual nightmares. And outside his window, the city lights glowed steady and constant, marking the end of one impossible day and the fragile beginning of something that might, eventually, become healing. Saturday morning arrived with sunlight streaming through cheap Venetian blinds and the sound of tiny feet thundering down the hallway. Noah had exactly 3 seconds of peaceful consciousness before a 5-year-old launched herself onto his bed with the force of a small meteor. "Daddy, you're still here!" Mia's voice carried the shock of someone witnessing a miracle. "You didn't go to work early." Noah caught her mid-bounce, pulling her into a hug that made her squeal with delight. Her hair smelled like the strawberry shampoo Mrs. Patterson must have used during last night's bath, and her pajamas were inside out because Mia insisted the tag scratched her neck and refused all assistance in fixing the problem properly. "I'm still here," he confirmed, his voice rough with sleep. "And I'm staying here. We've got the whole day together." Mia pulled back, her dark eyes, Sarah's eyes, searching his face with the solemn intensity only children could manage. "The whole day? Not just breakfast and then you have to go check important emails?" The question landed like a punch. How many Saturday mornings had he promised her time only to disappear into his laptop within an hour? "The whole day," Noah repeated firmly. "What should we do?" "The Science Museum." Mia's enthusiasm was instantaneous. "They have a new dinosaur exhibit, and Mrs. Patterson said there's a robot triceratops that moves and everything." "Then that's exactly where we'll go." Mia's face lit up with pure joy, and Noah felt the weight of last night's conversation settle differently. Evelyn was right. He'd been surviving instead of living, going through motions instead of being present. His daughter deserved better than a ghost father who existed in the same house but never truly showed up. They made pancakes together. Mia's were misshapen disasters that she decorated with enough chocolate chips to constitute a health hazard. Noah's phone buzzed twice with work emails, and both times he deliberately left it face down on the counter. The world wouldn't end if he didn't respond immediately. At the Science Museum, Mia dragged him from exhibit to exhibit with tireless energy, explaining dinosaur facts with the confident authority of a kindergarten expert. The robot Triceratops was indeed impressive, and Noah took approximately 60 photos of Mia standing beside it, making roaring faces. "Daddy, did you know some dinosaurs were really good parents?" Mia informed him as they explored a display about nesting behaviors. "They stayed with their babies and protected them and taught them stuff." "Is that right?" "Yeah. The museum lady said so." Mia grabbed his hand, her small fingers sticky with the remnants of the overpriced snack bar cookie he'd bought her. "Just like you protect me and teach me stuff." Noah's throat went tight. "I try, baby. You're really good at it." She said it simply, factually, the way she stated all her dinosaur knowledge. Then she was off again, racing toward the next display. They stayed until the museum closed, then got burgers at Mia's favorite diner, the kind of place with sticky tables and crayons for kids to draw on paper placemats. Mia drew a family of velociraptors while Noah watched her, really watched her, instead of dividing his attention between his daughter and his phone. "You seem different today," Mia observed, not looking up from her drawing. "Less tired." "I feel different." "Good different?" "Yeah, baby. Good different." That night, after 3 dinosaur books and 2 glasses of water and one final plea to stay up just 5 more minutes, Mia finally fell asleep. Noah stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe, feeling the fierce protectiveness that had defined his life since Sarah died. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Evelyn. Got your personal number from HR. Hope that's not too invasive, just checking that you actually took the day off. Noah smiled and typed back. Spent the entire day at the Science Museum learning about dinosaur parenting strategies. Not a single work email answered. Her response came quickly. Progress. How's Mia? Asleep. Currently surrounded by plastic dinosaurs and planning her future career in paleontology. She sounds wonderful. Noah hesitated, then typed, How are you? Did you manage to leave the office at a reasonable hour? The pause before her response was longer this time. Define reasonable, before midnight. Then, no. Evelyn. I know. I'm working on it. Old habits. Noah understood that more than she probably realized. The compulsion to work, to prove worth through exhaustion, to believe that stopping meant failing. Those patterns didn't disappear overnight just because you intellectually understood they were destructive. We'll figure it out together, he typed. Starting Monday. Starting Monday, she confirmed. Good night, Noah. Good night. Sunday passed in similar fashion, playground time, grocery shopping with Mia riding in the cart and narrating everything they passed, an afternoon of building elaborate dinosaur habitats out of couch cushions. Normal life. The kind Noah had forgotten was possible. But Monday morning arrived with the weight of unfinished business. Noah dropped Mia at kindergarten with promises to pick her up on time. Actually, on time. Not the rushed, apologetic late pickups that had become their norm. Then he drove to Quantum Dynamics with his stomach in knots. The building looked the same as always, sleek glass and steel, the kind of corporate architecture designed to project success and innovation. But Noah saw it differently now, through the lens of Friday night's conversation. How many people in this building were drowning the way he had been? How many were one exhausted shift away from their own tragedy? His team greeted him with the usual Monday morning chaos. Project updates, client emergencies, technical problems that had developed over the weekend. Noah handled it all with his typical efficiency, but something had shifted in his approach. When his junior developer mentioned working late Friday to fix a bug, Noah made a mental note. When his designer casually referenced answering emails at midnight, he paid attention. At 10 o'clock, his calendar pinged with a meeting notification. Executive Strategy Session, Conference Room 8C, attendance required. Noah's stomach dropped. The same conference room where everything had changed Friday night. He arrived to find Evelyn already there, along with 5 people he recognized as department heads and senior leaders from across the company. The energy in the room was tense, uncertain. Everyone knew Evelyn had been making significant changes since taking over as CEO, but no one was quite sure what to expect. Thank you all for coming, Evelyn began, standing at the head of the table with the same commanding presence she'd carried Friday night. But Noah could see the exhaustion around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands as she distributed folders to each person. We're here to discuss a fundamental restructuring of how this company operates. The department heads exchanged nervous glances. Evelyn continued, her voice steady and absolute. 4 years ago, my brother Lucas Cross died driving home from this office after an overnight shift. He was 26 years old. He fell asleep at the wheel because he'd been working 18-hour days for 2 weeks straight, trying to meet a deadline that executive leadership deemed more important than his well-being. The room went utterly silent. Lucas's death was not an isolated incident, Evelyn said. It was the inevitable result of a corporate culture that treats human beings as disposable resources. A culture that rewards self-destruction and punishes boundary setting. A culture that measures success in billable hours instead of sustainable outcomes. She opened her own folder, revealing what looked like years of compiled data. Since taking over as CEO, I've been conducting a comprehensive analysis of this company's working patterns. Here's what I found. 63% of our employees regularly work over 50 hours per week. 37% work over 60 hours. 15%, which represents approximately 200 people, are averaging 70 to 80-hour weeks. One of the department heads, a man named Richard Chen from the finance division, cleared his throat. Ms. Cross, those numbers reflect the competitive nature of our industry. Tech moves fast. Our clients expect competent work delivered on realistic timelines, Evelyn interrupted, her tone sharp. What they're getting instead are burned-out employees making mistakes because they're too exhausted to think clearly. We've had a 17% increase in project errors over the past 2 years. Customer satisfaction scores have dropped 12%. Employee retention is at an all-time low, and our recruitment costs have tripled because we can't keep good people. She let the statistics sink in. So here's what's going to change, Evelyn continued. Effective immediately, we're implementing new working hour policies. No employee is permitted to work more than 45 hours per week without explicit executive approval, which will only be granted in genuine emergency situations. All client contracts will be renegotiated to include realistic delivery timelines. Projects will be staffed appropriately, which means we're hiring additional people rather than crushing our existing team. The resistance in the room was palpable. Another department head, Margaret Lawson from Operations, spoke up carefully. Ms. Cross, with respect, our competitors don't operate this way. If we slow down, we'll lose market share. Clients will go elsewhere for faster turnaround. Then they can go. Evelyn's response was immediate and uncompromising. I'm not interested in business that requires destroying lives. We'll compete on quality, innovation, and sustainable excellence. If that means being smaller, so be it. I'd rather run an ethical company that treats people with dignity than a massive one built on exploitation. Noah watched the executives process this, seeing their calculations shift. Evelyn wasn't making suggestions. She was stating facts about how things would be. Additionally, Evelyn said, I'm forming a culture reform task force. This group will have direct authority to identify toxic patterns, redesign policies, and implement changes across all divisions. The task force will include people from every level of the company, not just executives, but project managers, individual contributors, support staff, people who've actually experienced the problems we're trying to fix. Her eyes found Noah across the table. Noah Reed will be leading this initiative, she announced. He has full executive backing and budget authority. His recommendations will be implemented, not debated. If you have concerns about his directives, you bring them to me, and I will side with him unless you can prove his approach is fundamentally unsound. Noah felt every eye in the room turn toward him, the weight of expectation, curiosity, and in some cases, resentment. Noah has been fighting against our toxic patterns for years, Evelyn continued. He's pushed back on unsafe deadlines, protected his team from unreasonable demands, and consistently delivered excellent work while maintaining humane standards. That's exactly the leadership this company needs. Richard Chen frowned. Ms. Cross, Noah is certainly competent, but leading a company-wide cultural initiative is a significant expansion of responsibility. Shouldn't we consider someone with more executive experience? Noah has the experience that matters, Evelyn said coldly. He knows what it costs when we get this wrong. Some lessons can't be learned in business school. The implicit reference to Lucas hung in the air. No one argued further. The meeting continued for another hour, covering logistics, timeline, and implementation strategies. Noah took notes mechanically, his mind still processing the magnitude of what Evelyn had just done. She'd essentially handed him authority to reshape the entire company, backed by her absolute power as CEO. When the meeting finally ended and people filed out, Noah lingered. Evelyn was gathering her materials, her movements precise but tired. That was quite an introduction, Noah said quietly. You needed the authority to actually make changes, Evelyn replied without looking up. Otherwise, you'd spend 6 months fighting middle management resistance and accomplish nothing. You basically declared war on the entire executive structure. I declared war on a system that killed my brother. Now she did look at him, and her expression was fierce. They can adapt, or they can leave. I don't particularly care which. Some of them will leave. Good. I want people who believe in what we're building, not people clinging to destructive patterns because they're comfortable. Evelyn closed her folder with a decisive snap. Can you handle this, Noah? I'm asking seriously. This is going to be hard. You'll face resistance, resentment, sabotage from people protecting their territory. I can give you authority, but I can't fight every battle for you. Noah thought about Mia's face Saturday morning, her shock that he'd actually stayed home. He thought about Lucas's journal entry, the trust placed in him that he'd been too guilty to accept. He thought about every talented person he'd watched burn out and leave because the company culture made sustainable work impossible. I can handle it, he said, but I'm going to need support. I can't do this alone. You won't be alone. Evelyn's voice softened slightly. I meant what I said Friday night. We're in this together. Then let's start by practicing what we preach. Noah checked his watch. It's nearly noon. When did you last eat an actual meal? Evelyn's guilty expression was answer enough. There's a sandwich place 2 blocks away, Noah continued. We're both going to leave this office, eat real food, and discuss task force strategy like 2 people who aren't trying to work themselves to death. I have a conference call at 1. Reschedule it. Noah, you just gave me authority to reshape company culture. First executive decision. The CEO models healthy behavior by taking an actual lunch break. He smiled slightly. That's a direct order from your task force leader. Evelyn stared at him for a moment, then laughed. That same genuine sound from Friday night. You're going to be insufferable with this new authority, aren't you? Absolutely. They walked to the sandwich shop together, drawing curious looks from other Quantum Dynamics employees who'd never seen the CEO leave the building during work hours. The spring afternoon was warm, the city alive with lunch hour energy. Over sandwiches and coffee, they started planning in earnest. Evelyn had compiled extensive data on company working patterns, but data alone wouldn't change culture. They needed stories, testimonials from employees about their experiences. They needed to identify the specific mechanisms through which toxic expectations were enforced, the subtle and not so subtle ways people were punished for maintaining boundaries. We should start with voluntary interviews, Noah suggested. Create a confidential channel where people can share their experiences without fear of retaliation. HR should handle that, Evelyn said. HR is part of the problem. Noah's voice was gentle but firm. How many complaints do you think have been filed over the years about working conditions? How many were actually addressed versus dismissed as people not being team players? Evelyn's expression darkened. You're right. We need an external investigator, someone with no loyalty to existing power structures. And we need to move fast, Noah added. Once word gets out about the task force, people will start covering tracks. We need documentation before that happens. They talked strategy until Noah's phone alarm went off, the reminder he'd set to leave in time for Mia's pickup. He silenced it reluctantly. You need to go, Evelyn observed. I set boundaries, but I hate activating them, Noah admitted. Old habits. Then we'll both work on new ones. Evelyn stood up, gathering her things. Thank you for forcing me to take lunch. I actually feel human for the first time in days. Same time tomorrow? Deal. They walked back to the office together, and Noah grabbed his laptop bag before heading to his car. The kindergarten pickup line was already forming when he arrived, exactly on time, not rushed, not apologetic. Mia's face when she spotted him was pure sunshine. Daddy, you're here when you're supposed to be here. I'll be here on time every day, Noah promised, helping her into her car seat. That's the new rule. I like the new rule. Me too, baby. That evening, after dinner and bath time and the endless bedtime negotiations, Noah opened his laptop to begin preliminary work on the task force initiative. But instead of diving into spreadsheets and policy documents, he found himself writing something different, a list of names. People he'd worked with over the years who'd left the company burned out, disillusioned, or broken. Talented engineers who'd taken pay cuts to escape impossible expectations. Project managers who'd transferred to less prestigious companies because they valued their sanity over their resume. The quiet exodus of good people that no one in leadership seemed to notice or care about. Lucas's name went at the top of the list, not because he'd left, but because he never got the chance to. Noah's phone buzzed, another text from Evelyn. Still working? He smiled and typed back, technically yes, but planning work, not doing work. There's a difference, is there? I'm figuring it out as I go. Let me know when you crack the code, she wrote. I'm still at the office. Go home, Evelyn. Rich, coming from you. I'm already home. I'm in pajamas. I've read 3 dinosaur books and negotiated 2 glasses of water. I'm winning. A longer pause this time. Then, you're right. I'm leaving now. Proof of departure required. Photo of your empty office, or it didn't happen. A minute later, his phone buzzed with an image. Evelyn's office, lights off, clearly empty except for the city view through floor-to-ceiling windows. She'd captioned it. Satisfied? Very. Now actually leave the building. Going. Good night, Noah. Good night. Noah closed his laptop and checked on Mia one more time before getting into bed. She was sprawled in her typical sleeping starfish position, one arm dangling off the mattress, her favorite stuffed stegosaurus clutched in her other hand. He thought about Lucas's journal entry, about being the kind of manager who fought for his people, about the responsibility he'd just accepted to transform an entire company's culture. The task was enormous, maybe impossible. But for the first time in 4 years, Noah felt like he was moving towards something instead of running away. The guilt hadn't disappeared. He suspected it never fully would. But it was transforming, just as Evelyn had suggested, becoming fuel for purpose instead of weight that dragged him under. His phone buzzed one more time. Evelyn again. Just got home. Apartment is depressingly empty, but I'm here. Thank you for pushing. Noah hesitated, then wrote, We're going to figure out the work-life balance thing together, even if we're terrible at it. Especially because we're terrible at it, she replied. People who are naturally good at boundaries don't understand the struggle. Exactly. Good night, Evelyn. Actually, sleep. Same to you. Noah set his phone on the nightstand and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, resistance from entrenched executives, the logistical nightmare of restructuring an entire company culture, the daily tension between old habits and new commitments. But tonight, he'd been home for dinner. He'd read bedtime stories. He'd helped another person leave the office at a reasonable hour. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. And somewhere, Noah hoped, maybe Lucas was watching. Maybe his death could mean something beyond tragedy. Maybe all the pain could be transformed into protection for others. The thought brought a measure of peace Noah hadn't felt in years. He fell asleep thinking not of crashes and guilt, but of task forces and reform. Of Mia's laughter and Evelyn's determination. Of the possibility that broken people could heal each other while healing broken systems. It wasn't redemption yet, but it was something close to hope. The resistance started Tuesday morning. Noah arrived at his desk to find an email from Richard Chen, the finance executive from yesterday's meeting, marked urgent and copied to half the leadership team. The subject line read, Concerns regarding proposed cultural initiative timeline and resource allocation. The email was a masterclass in corporate passive aggression. Chen expressed support for improving workplace culture while systematically dismantling every practical aspect of Noah's authority. Questions about budget justification, requests for extensive feasibility studies, suggestions that perhaps a more seasoned executive should oversee implementation while Noah served in an advisory capacity. Noah read it twice, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. 4 years of being overruled by people like Chen had trained him to back down, to compromise until his ideas were watered down to nothing. His phone rang. Evelyn, you've seen Chen's email, she said without preamble. Just read it. I'm forwarding you my response. Don't reply to him directly. Let me handle the political warfare. Her voice was ice cold, the tone of someone who'd been fighting battles like this her entire career. You focus on building the task force. I'll make sure the vultures don't pick you apart while you work. Evelyn, maybe he has a point about the timeline. He has a point about wanting to delay changes that threaten his power structure, she interrupted. Chen has been encouraging his entire division to work 60-hour weeks for years. He sees humane working conditions as a threat to productivity, which really means he's afraid of being exposed as someone who manages through exploitation instead of competence. Noah heard the distinctive sound of rapid typing in the background. Evelyn was already crafting her response. I've dealt with men like Richard Chen since I was 22 years old, she continued. They smile and nod while undermining everything you're trying to build. Watch what I do. Learn the techniques. You'll need them. She hung up before Noah could respond. 10 minutes later, Evelyn's reply appeared in his inbox. It was surgical in its precision, acknowledging Chen's concerns with just enough professional courtesy to avoid open hostility, then systematically demolishing each objection with data, precedent, and the kind of executive authority that left no room for further debate. She concluded by reaffirming Noah's complete autonomy over the initiative and suggesting that anyone with implementation concerns schedule time directly with her office. The message was clear: challenge Noah, challenge me. Noah watched the email thread, seeing various executives typing responses that appeared briefly, then disappeared. No one wanted to go to war with the CEO, especially not over an issue she'd made explicitly personal. His office phone rang again. This time it was Margaret Lawson from operations. "Noah, do you have a minute?" Her voice was carefully neutral. "I'd like to discuss the culture initiative in person rather than through email chains." They met in one of the smaller conference rooms 15 minutes later. Margaret was in her mid-50s, a veteran of the tech industry who'd climbed the ranks when there were even fewer women in leadership. She sat across from Noah with her hands folded, her expression unreadable. "I'm not here to undermine you," she said immediately. "I want to make that clear up front." "Okay," Noah said cautiously, "but I am here to give you a reality check because I think Evelyn is setting you up for something incredibly difficult, and I'm not sure you understand the scope." Margaret leaned forward slightly. "I've been with this company for 12 years. I've watched 3 different CEOs try to change the culture. Every single attempt failed. Do you know why?" "Tell me." "Because culture isn't changed from the top down through policy mandates. It's changed through 1,000 daily interactions, unspoken expectations, and social pressures that no memo can address." Her voice wasn't hostile, just weary. "Evelyn can order people to work 45 hours. She can't order them to stop judging colleagues who actually do it. She can't mandate that leaving at 5 o'clock doesn't get you quietly passed over for promotions. She can't legislate away the whispered conversations about who's really committed and who's just coasting." Noah absorbed this, recognizing the truth in her words. He'd experienced exactly those dynamics for years. "So you think this is pointless?" he asked. "I think it's necessary, but insufficient." Margaret's expression softened slightly. "You're going to need more than executive backing. You're going to need to change hearts and minds, which is infinitely harder than changing policies. People are terrified, Noah. Terrified of falling behind, of being replaced by someone willing to sacrifice more, of losing status in a system that's rewarded their self-destruction for decades." "What would you suggest?" "Start with stories," Margaret said immediately. "Not data, not policies. Stories. Find people willing to talk about what this culture has cost them. Make it personal. Make it real. Let people see themselves in the consequences." She paused, then added quietly, "I almost had a nervous breakdown 3 years ago. Worked myself into such severe anxiety that I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, ended up in the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. I was 48 years old and my body was shutting down from stress." Noah stared at her. "I had no idea." "No one did. I took a week off, came back, and kept pushing myself because I didn't know any other way to be." Margaret's voice wavered slightly. "When Evelyn announced this initiative yesterday, part of me felt relief, but another part felt terror, because I've built my entire identity around being the person who works harder than everyone else. If that's no longer valued, who am I?" The raw honesty in her confession made Noah's chest tight. This was what Evelyn meant about people being products of the system they'd survived. "You're still the competent, strategic, experienced executive you've always been," Noah said carefully. "Your value doesn't come from how much you suffer. It comes from the quality of your work and the wisdom of your leadership." "Intellectually, I know that." Margaret smiled sadly. "Emotionally, I'm still convinced I need to prove myself through exhaustion. That's what you're up against, Noah. Not malice, trauma. People who've been trained to measure their worth through damage." "Then we help them unlearn it," Noah said. "Together. Would you be willing to join the task force? Your perspective would be invaluable." Margaret considered this for a long moment. "You understand I'll push back when I think you're being unrealistic? I'm counting on it. I need people who'll tell me the truth, not just agree with everything." "Then yes, I'll join." She stood, extending her hand. "But Noah, be prepared for this to hurt. Real change always does." They shook hands, and Noah felt the first solid piece of his task force click into place. Someone with institutional knowledge, executive credibility, and the kind of hard-won insight that only came from surviving the system's worst. Over the next week, Noah assembled his team with deliberate care. He recruited Sarah Martinez, a junior developer who'd been vocal about work-life balance issues in anonymous company surveys. James Chen, a project coordinator from the sales division who'd taken a demotion to escape unsustainable hours. Patricia Williams, an administrative assistant who'd witnessed 20 years of cultural dysfunction from a position most executives never noticed. Each conversation was difficult in different ways. People were suspicious of initiatives that claimed to help them, scarred by previous failed attempts at reform. Some refused outright, too cynical to believe anything would actually change. Others agreed, but made Noah promise not to use their real names in any documentation, terrified of retaliation, despite Evelyn's assurances. The task force held its first official meeting on Thursday afternoon in a conference room Evelyn had designated as their permanent workspace. 8 people sat around the table, diverse in age, role, and perspective, united by their willingness to fight for something better. Noah started with the question Margaret had taught him mattered most. Why are you here? The answers came slowly at first, people testing whether vulnerability was actually safe in this context. Sarah Martinez talked about missing her niece's birthday 3 years running because last-minute crises always seem to emerge on family occasions. James Chen described the slow dissolution of his marriage under the pressure of 90-hour weeks. Patricia Williams spoke about watching talented young employees burn out and leave, knowing the pattern would just repeat with their replacements. And then Margaret told her story about the ER, about thinking she was dying, about the fundamental terror of realizing her body was giving out under stress. By the time everyone had spoken, the emotional weight in the room was palpable. These weren't abstract problems to be solved with policy adjustments. These were wounds that needed healing. Here's what I want to propose, Noah said, his voice steady despite the emotion churning in his chest. We start by documenting the real cost of how this company has operated. Not just statistics, but stories. We conduct confidential interviews with employees at every level, letting them share experiences without fear. We compile that into a report that makes the human impact undeniable. And then what? Sarah asked. We've all seen reports buried when they threaten the wrong people. Then we don't let it be buried. Noah glanced at Margaret, who nodded encouragingly. Evelyn has committed to full transparency. Whatever we find, she'll share with the entire company, the board of directors, investors if necessary. We make the truth too public to ignore. That's a declaration of war, James said quietly. Against everyone who's built their career on the old model. Yes, Noah agreed. It is, and some of those people will fight back hard. They'll try to discredit us, dismiss our findings, claim we're exaggerating, or that people are too sensitive. We need to be prepared for that. Patricia, who'd been mostly silent until now, spoke up in her soft but firm voice. I've been watching executives destroy people for 2 decades. Honestly, I'd welcome the fight. At least it means we're not pretending everything is fine anymore. The group spent the next 2 hours mapping out their strategy. They would start with voluntary interview requests sent through a secure external platform. They'd hire an independent investigator to conduct sessions and compile findings. They'd establish clear protections against retaliation, backed by Evelyn's personal guarantee and legal framework. When the meeting ended, Noah felt simultaneously energized and exhausted. The magnitude of what they were attempting was becoming clearer, and with it, the risks. His phone buzzed as he packed up his materials. A text from Evelyn. How did it go? Good. Hard. Necessary. We have a solid team. Dinner? She wrote. I'm buying. You look like you could use a friendly face. Noah hesitated. Mia was with Mrs. Patterson tonight for a rare overnight stay, so Noah could attend a late evening client call, which had been canceled at the last minute, leaving him unexpectedly free. Where? He typed back. Little Italian place on 5th Street. Quiet, good pasta, no one from the office will be there. 20 minutes. The restaurant was exactly as Evelyn described, small, warm, family-owned. She was already seated in a corner booth when Noah arrived, looking uncharacteristically casual in jeans and a sweater instead of her usual sharp business attire. You look almost human, Noah observed, sliding into the seat across from her. I left the CEO armor at the office. Evelyn smiled tiredly. Sometimes I need to remember I'm a person, not just a position. They ordered wine and pasta, and for the first few minutes didn't talk about work at all. Evelyn asked about Mia, and Noah found himself telling stories about his daughter's latest dinosaur obsession, the elaborate game she invented, the questions she asked that had no good answers. She asked me yesterday if her mom is in heaven, Noah said quietly. I don't know how to answer that. Sarah and I were never religious. Mia learned about heaven from a classmate. Now she wants to know if that's where people go when they die. What did you tell her? That I don't know for sure, but that her mom loved her very much, and that love doesn't stop just because someone isn't physically here anymore. Noah took a drink of wine. It felt inadequate. It sounds perfect. Evelyn's voice was gentle. You told her the truth, that some things are unknowable, while affirming what matters most. That's good parenting. You sound like you have experience with impossible questions. Lucas used to ask them constantly when we were kids. Her expression grew distant, nostalgic. He wanted to understand everything, how the world worked, why people did what they did, what happened after death. Our parents gave these elaborate explanations trying to satisfy him, but he always found the holes in their logic. What was he like? Really like, beyond the work stuff. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. Brilliant, curious, kinder than most people who are that smart. He saw patterns in everything, code, music, human behavior. Could spend hours explaining the mathematical beauty of a chord progression or the elegance of a particular algorithm. Her voice softened further. He was also stubborn as hell. Once Lucas decided something mattered, he wouldn't let it go. That's why he was such a good engineer. He'd chase problems until he solved them. But it's also why... She stopped, swallowing hard. Why he pushed himself too hard, Noah finished quietly. Yeah. Evelyn looked down at her hands. The night before he died, he called me. It was late, maybe 1 a.m. He sounded exhausted, but also excited because he'd just figured out a solution to some technical challenge. I could hear it in his voice, that satisfaction of solving something difficult. What did you say? I congratulated him, told him to get some sleep, said we'd celebrate over the weekend. Her voice cracked slightly. I didn't know it was the last time I'd hear his voice. Didn't know that 12 hours later I'd be identifying his body in a morgue. Noah reached across the table instinctively, covering her hand with his. I'm sorry. I know you are. Evelyn didn't pull away. That's what makes this whole thing so complicated. You carry guilt for approving a shift. I carry guilt for encouraging his ambition. His manager carries guilt for not intervening. The executives carry guilt, or should, for creating the pressure. We're all holding pieces of responsibility for something that was fundamentally systemic. Does knowing that make it easier? Not really. She smiled sadly. But it makes the path forward clearer. We can't undo what happened, can't bring Lucas back, but we can dismantle the system that killed him. Make sure his death meant something. Their food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. The pasta was excellent, the wine warming, the atmosphere blessedly free of corporate tension. Can I ask you something personal? Evelyn said eventually. Sure. How do you do it? The single-parent thing while managing a demanding job. I watch you, and I'm amazed you're still standing. Noah considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't know if I am doing it well. Most days I feel like I'm failing at everything simultaneously. Not present enough for Mia, not productive enough at work, not taking care of myself even remotely adequately. But you show up every day. For your daughter, for your team, for this task force we're building. Because I don't have a choice. Noah set down his fork. When Sarah died, I had about 24 hours to grieve before Mia needed breakfast and clean clothes and someone to explain why mommy wasn't coming home. You learn to function through pain because a tiny human is depending on you. The alternative is collapse, and collapse isn't an option. That's what I mean. Evelyn's eyes were intense. That strength. That ability to keep going even when everything hurts. Where does it come from? Desperation, mostly. Noah smiled without humor. And coffee. Truly unreasonable amounts of coffee. I'm serious, Noah. He met her gaze, seeing genuine curiosity there. Maybe need, like she was searching for a blueprint for survival. You want the real answer? he asked. Please. I don't think of it as strength. I think of it as stubbornness. Noah leaned back, trying to articulate something he'd never put into words before. When Sarah was sick in those final weeks, she made me promise something. She said, "Don't let grief destroy you. Don't let Mia grow up with a ghost father. Promise me you'll actually live, not just survive." His throat tightened at the memory. I promised, and then she died, and I broke that promise almost immediately. Threw myself into work, stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, stopped doing anything that wasn't either taking care of Mia or trying to prove I deserved to still have a job. I was surviving, not living, exactly what Sarah begged me not to do. What changed? Nothing for years. And then you asked me if I was upset with you. Noah smiled slightly. That conversation forced me to confront everything I'd been avoiding. The guilt, the grief, the impossible standards I'd been holding myself to. And I realized I was doing to myself exactly what the company culture does, measuring worth through suffering, believing pain proves dedication. So how do you stop? I don't know if you ever fully stop, but you start small. Noah counted on his fingers. Leave work on time, eat meals sitting down instead of at your desk. Let yourself feel things instead of burying them in productivity. Accept help when it's offered. Recognize that being human isn't the same as being weak. Evelyn was listening with the kind of focused intensity she usually reserved for business strategy. You're doing this for yourself, aren't you? Noah said gently. Not just the company reform. The personal stuff, too. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. He squeezed her hand briefly before pulling back. What's going on, Evelyn? Really? She was quiet for a long moment, clearly debating how much to share. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I haven't taken a full day off in 3 years. Not since Lucas died. I work 7 days a week, minimum 12 hours a day, usually more. I sleep maybe 4 hours a night. I can't remember the last time I saw friends or did anything that wasn't work-related. Why? Because if I stop moving, I'll have to feel everything. The confession came out raw. The grief, the guilt, the absolute terror that I'm not good enough to run this company, that I'm going to fail and prove everyone right who said I only got here because of my last name and my inheritance. Evelyn, I'm 30 years old and I'm a billionaire CEO and I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. Tears were sliding down her cheeks now. I took over this company because I needed to do something with the rage and grief after Lucas died. But every day I'm terrified I'm going to make decisions that hurt people the way he was hurt. So I work constantly, trying to stay ahead of my own incompetence, trying to be perfect enough that nothing else goes wrong. Noah felt something crack open in his chest. This brilliant, powerful woman was drowning in exactly the same patterns that had nearly destroyed him. You're not incompetent, he said firmly. You've made more positive changes in 8 months than most CEOs make in careers. The task force, the working hour policies, the willingness to challenge entrenched power structures that takes incredible courage and skill. Or recklessness. Evelyn wiped her eyes roughly. Maybe I'm just burning everything down because I'm angry and I don't know what else to do with the feeling. Even if that's true, you're burning down things that deserve to burn. Noah leaned forward. But you're also burning yourself out in the process. When did you last eat a meal that wasn't delivered to your office? When did you last sleep more than 4 hours? When did you last do something just because it brought you joy? I don't remember. Then we're adding you to the reform project. Noah's tone left no room for argument. You can't lead a culture change toward humane working conditions while destroying yourself. It's hypocritical and it's unsustainable. I'm the CEO. I have to. You have to model the behavior you're demanding from everyone else. Noah cut her off. Starting now. What brings you joy, Evelyn? What did you used to do before work consumed everything? She stared at him like he'd asked her to explain quantum physics. I used to paint, she said finally, the words coming out hesitant. Watercolors mostly, landscapes. I was never very good at it, but I liked the process, the way colors bled into each other, the surprises that emerged. When did you last paint? College? Maybe a year after college. Evelyn's expression grew distant. I stopped when I started my first company, told myself I'd get back to it when things settled down. They never did. This weekend, you're going to paint something, Noah said decisively. I don't care if it's terrible. I don't care if you only spend 30 minutes on it. You're going to do something that isn't work, isn't productive, isn't advancing any strategic goal. Just for yourself. That seems frivolous when there's so much to do. It's essential. Trust me on this. Noah's voice softened. I spent 2 years believing that any moment not spent working or caring for Mia was wasted. You know what that got me? Exhaustion, resentment, and a daughter who barely knew me because I was physically present but emotionally absent. Don't make the same mistake. Evelyn absorbed this, her defenses visibly crumbling. I don't know if I remember how to do things just for pleasure. Then we'll learn together. You paint this weekend, I'll do something equally frivolous. We'll check in Monday and report back like it's a work assignment if that makes it easier. You're serious about this? Completely. Noah smiled. Consider it your first task force directive. The CEO must engage in non-productive creative activity for a minimum of 1 hour this weekend. Despite her tears, Evelyn laughed. You really are going to be insufferable with this authority. Absolutely. They finished dinner talking about lighter things, favorite books, embarrassing childhood stories, Mia's latest schemes to delay bedtime. By the time they left the restaurant, some of the weight had lifted from both their shoulders. Outside, the spring evening was cool and clear. Evelyn's car was parked 3 blocks away, and they walked together in comfortable silence. Thank you, she said as they reached her car. For dinner, for listening, for not letting me pretend I have everything under control. Thank you for the same, Noah replied. We're both works in progress. Partners in dysfunction. Evelyn smiled, and it reached her eyes for the first time all evening. I like it. Good night, Evelyn. Actually, go home and sleep. Good night, Noah. Give Mia a hug from me when you see her tomorrow. He watched her drive away, then walked to his own car with his mind full of everything they'd shared. The vulnerability, the mutual recognition of patterns, the beginning of something that felt like genuine friendship built on shared wounds. His phone buzzed, a text from Evelyn. Already breaking my promise, remembered I need to review budget proposals. Noah typed back immediately. No. Go home. The budgets will still be there Monday. You're not the boss of me. I'm the task force leader. You literally gave me authority over workplace culture, which includes CEO working hours. Go. Home. A longer pause, then, fine. But I'm holding you to the painting assignment. Deal. Now sleep. Bossy. Someone has to be. Noah drove home smiling slightly, feeling the strange mix of exhaustion and hope that came with difficult but necessary conversations. The task force work would be brutal. Changing an entire company culture was maybe impossible, but at least they were trying. At least they were doing it together. At least neither of them had to drown alone anymore. The interview data started coming in on Monday morning, and it was worse than Noah had anticipated. The independent investigator they'd hired, a former organizational psychologist named Dr. Amanda Torres, had set up a secure portal where Quantum Dynamics employees could anonymously share their experiences. Within 48 hours, over 200 people had submitted responses. By the end of the first week, that number had climbed to 417. Noah sat in the task force workspace reading through the testimonials, and each one felt like a punch to the gut. A software engineer who'd miscarried after working 100-hour weeks during a critical product launch, convinced the stress had contributed to the loss. A father who'd missed his son's first steps because he'd been locked in back-to-back meetings that could have been emails. A woman who'd developed such severe insomnia from work anxiety that she'd started hallucinating during her commute. A man who'd contemplated suicide in the office bathroom, overwhelmed by impossible deadlines and the certainty that asking for help would mark him as weak. Story after story of people breaking themselves because they believed they had no choice. Margaret sat beside Noah, reading the same testimonials on her laptop, her expression growing grimmer with each one. Sarah Martinez had tears streaming down her face. James Chen had gone pale and still in a way that suggested he was seeing his own experiences reflected back. We need to stop, Patricia said finally, her voice shaking. I can't read any more of these right now. It's too much. Noah looked up, seeing the emotional devastation on everyone's faces. They'd been reading for 3 hours straight, barely speaking, absorbing the collective trauma of their workplace. You're right, he agreed. Let's take a break. Real break. Go outside. Get lunch. Breathe air that isn't saturated with other people's pain. The task force scattered gratefully. Noah remained at the table, unable to stop reading. Each testimonial felt like a responsibility, a trust placed in him that he couldn't ignore even for the sake of his own mental health. His phone rang. Evelyn. "Have you been reading the interview responses?" she asked without preamble. "For the past 3 hours." "Me too." Her voice was tight, controlled in the way that meant she was barely holding it together. "Noah, this is... I knew it was bad, but this is... devastating," he finished. "Systematic. Worse than we thought." "How many of these stories do you think end with someone like Lucas?" Evelyn asked quietly. "How many people have we already lost who just aren't in the data because they're gone?" Noah closed his eyes against the weight of that question. "I don't know. Too many." "I'm calling an emergency board meeting," Evelyn said, her voice hardening with resolve. "This week. I want them to see this data. I want them to understand the real cost of how this company has operated. They're going to push back, tell you we're overreacting, that these are isolated incidents. Let them try." The steel in her voice was absolute. "I have 417 testimonials and counting. I have medical records, documentation of harassment complaints that were dismissed, emails from managers actively discouraging people from taking vacation time. I have enough evidence to bury every board member who tries to defend this system. Evelyn, I'm done being patient, Noah. Done with incremental change and political maneuvering. People are suffering right now, today, while we carefully navigate corporate politics. I won't accept that anymore." Noah heard the edge of something dangerous in her voice, the kind of rage that could burn down everything in its path, including the person feeling it. "I'm with you," he said carefully. "But we need to be strategic. If you go into that board meeting too hot, they'll dismiss you as emotional, unstable, not fit for leadership. You know they will." Silence on the other end. Then grudgingly, "You're right. I hate that you're right, but you're right. Let me help you prepare. We'll build a presentation that's irrefutable. Data, testimonials, financial analysis showing the cost of turnover and burnout. We'll make it impossible for them to look away." "When?" "Tonight. My place. I'll order dinner, you bring the righteous fury. We'll channel it into something that actually works." Noah paused. "And yes, before you ask, Mia will be there. She has opinions about everything, and she's not afraid to share them. Fair warning." That got a small laugh from Evelyn. "I'd love to meet her properly. 7 o'clock, don't be late." Noah spent the afternoon coordinating with Dr. Torres about data analysis and compilation. They needed the testimonials organized thematically, cross-referenced with company metrics on productivity, retention, and employee satisfaction. The story needed to be airtight, irrefutable, devastating in its clarity. He left the office at 5 sharp, another small victory in his ongoing battle with old habits. The kindergarten pickup line was familiar now, Mia's excitement at seeing him on time becoming routine instead of surprise. "We're having a special dinner guest tonight," Noah told her as they drove home. "My friend Evelyn. She's my boss, but she's also someone I'm working with to make my job better." "Is she nice?" Mia asked with the directness only 5-year-olds could manage. "Very nice, but also very busy and sometimes very sad." "Why is she sad?" Noah navigated this carefully. "She had a brother who died a few years ago. She misses him a lot." Mia was quiet for a moment, processing this with the seriousness she gave to important things. "Like how I miss Mommy? Yeah, baby, like that." "Then I should be extra nice to her," Mia decided, "because being sad about people you miss is really hard." Noah's throat tightened. His daughter's capacity for empathy never stopped surprising him. "That's very kind of you." At home, they tidied the apartment together. Mia's idea of helping involved more enthusiasm than effectiveness, but Noah appreciated the effort. He ordered Thai food from Evelyn's favorite restaurant, something she'd mentioned in passing during one of their lunch conversations. Evelyn arrived exactly at 7, carrying her laptop bag and looking exhausted. She'd changed from her usual business attire into jeans and a soft sweater, another sign of the walls slowly coming down between them. "You must be Mia," Evelyn said, crouching down to the little girl's eye level. Your dad has told me so much about you. Mia regarded her seriously. He said your brother died and you're sad about it. Noah winced at the bluntness, but Evelyn's expression softened. That's true, she said gently. I'm sad about it, but it helps to have friends who understand. My mommy died too, Mia said matter-of-factly. Sometimes I'm sad and sometimes I'm okay, and Daddy says both things are normal. Your daddy is very smart. I know. Mia grabbed Evelyn's hand with complete confidence. Do you want to see my dinosaur collection? I have 17 dinosaurs and I know all their names. Evelyn looked at Noah, who shrugged helplessly. I'm being recruited, she said, smiling for real. Lead the way. For the next 20 minutes, Noah prepared dinner while listening to Mia give Evelyn an exhaustive tour of her dinosaur knowledge. Evelyn asked questions with genuine interest, not the condescending tone some adults used with children, and Mia responded by sharing her most prized possession, a battered stuffed stegosaurus that had been Sarah's final gift. This is Spike, Mia explained. Mia sisquant. Mommy gave him to me before she went to the hospital the last time. She said he would protect me when she couldn't be here. Evelyn's eyes glistened with tears, but she kept her voice steady. That was very special of her. Spike looks like an excellent protector. He is. You can hold him if you want, but you have to be gentle because he's important. I'll be very gentle, Evelyn promised, accepting the stuffed animal like it was made of glass. They ate dinner together, Mia chattering about kindergarten politics and the ongoing drama of who got to be line leader. Evelyn listened with the same focused attention she brought to business meetings, asking follow-up questions and treating Mia's concerns with appropriate gravity. After dinner, Mia requested one dinosaur book before being banished to her room for quiet playtime so the adults could work. She hugged Evelyn goodnight with the easy affection of someone who'd decided they were friends now, and Evelyn held on just a moment longer than necessary. She's wonderful, Evelyn said once Mia had thundered down the hallway, so much like what you've described. She's my whole world. Noah cleared the dinner dishes, feeling the familiar swell of fierce love mixed with terror at the responsibility. Some days I'm convinced I'm completely failing her. Other days I think maybe we're actually okay. You're more than okay. She's happy, confident, emotionally intelligent. That doesn't happen by accident. They settled at Noah's small dining table with laptops and the testimonial data spread between them. The domestic setting felt surreal given the devastating content they were about to organize. How do we structure this? Evelyn asked, all business now. What makes the strongest case? We start with Lucas, Noah said quietly. Not as manipulation, but as context. He's the reason you took over this company. He's the reason this initiative exists. His story frames everything else. Evelyn's hand trembled slightly as she pulled up a file. I have photos, his personnel file, the accident report, his journal entries. How much do we include? Enough to make him real, not just a statistic, but a person. Your brother. Someone people in that boardroom might have worked with. They spent the next hour crafting Lucas's section with painful care. Photos of him at company events, smiling and alive. Excerpts from his performance reviews praising his brilliance and dedication. The timeline of his final 2 weeks, the escalating hours, the mounting pressure, the shift that ended his life. Then Evelyn read one of Lucas's final journal entries aloud, her voice breaking on certain words. I'm so tired I can barely think straight anymore. But we're close to finishing. Just have to push through a little longer. Noah looks worried every time he sees me, keeps asking if I'm okay. I keep telling him I'm fine because I know he's already fighting the executives about our timeline. Don't want to make things harder for him. After this project ships, I'm taking a real vacation. Maybe visit Evelyn, force her to take time off too. We both work too much. The silence after she finished was heavy with everything Lucas never got to do. Next section should be the patterns, Noah said, his voice rough. We show this wasn't isolated. We demonstrate the systematic nature of the problem. They organized the testimonials into categories: physical health impacts, mental health crises, relationship destruction, career damage from trying to maintain boundaries. Each category had dozens of examples, the sheer volume making denial impossible. A project manager who'd had a stress-induced stroke at 34, An engineer who'd lost custody of his children because work consumed every evening and weekend. A woman who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times explicitly because she left at 6 to pick up her kids from daycare, despite exceeding all performance metrics. We need financial data too, Evelyn said, pulling up spreadsheets. Show them this isn't just morally wrong, it's economically stupid. They compiled the numbers. Turnover costs averaging $150,000 per technical employee. Productivity losses from burned-out workers making mistakes. The increasing expense of recruiting as the company's reputation deteriorated. The human cost was incalculable, but the business cost was in the tens of millions annually. Here's what's going to happen, Evelyn said, her strategic mind working through the board dynamics. Richard Chen and his allies will argue these are cherry-picked examples. They'll say people are exaggerating, that tech industry work is always demanding, that we can't compete if we coddle employees. How do we counter that? We don't argue. We bury them in evidence. Evelyn's smile was sharp. 400 testimonials isn't cherry-picking. Medical records aren't exaggeration. Our competitors who've implemented humane working conditions and are outperforming us financially aren't theoretical. They're proof this works. They worked until midnight, building a presentation that was comprehensive, devastating, and irrefutable. Evelyn's righteous anger had been channeled into surgical precision, every argument anticipated and countered, every objection met with data. This is going to cause an earthquake, Noah said, reviewing their final draft. Good. Let it. Evelyn closed her laptop with decisive finality. Some foundations need to crumble before you can build something solid. She stood to leave, gathering her things with the weary movements of someone who'd been running on fumes too long. Did you paint this weekend? Noah asked. Evelyn paused, then smiled slightly. I did. Bought cheap watercolors and paper from the art store. Painted a terrible sunset that looked like something a kindergartner would do. How did it feel? Awkward at first, like I'd forgotten how to do things without purpose. But then, she trailed off, searching for words. Then it was just colors and water and paper. No right answer, no performance metric. Just the process. Did you keep it? It's on my refrigerator. Evelyn laughed at herself. First thing I've put there in 3 years besides takeout menus. Progress, Noah said. What about this week? What's your non-work assignment? You're really committed to this homework thing. Completely. You're modeling behavior change for the entire company. Can't do that if you're still working yourself to death. Evelyn considered this. Music. I used to love going to concerts, small venues with live bands. Haven't done that since college. Then find a show this week and go, even if it's just for an hour. Come with me, she said impulsively. Make it a task force bonding activity. You need non-work time too. Noah hesitated. The idea of going to a concert felt impossibly frivolous, given everything happening. But that was exactly the point, wasn't it? Deal, he agreed, but somewhere with good acoustics. My musical taste is stuck in the 90s, and I make no apologies for that. Perfect. I'll find something. Evelyn headed toward the door, then stopped. Thank you, for tonight, for helping me channel the rage into something productive, for letting Mia share her dinosaurs with me. She really liked you. Fair warning, you're now expected to be available for future dinosaur consultations. I'm honored. Evelyn's expression grew more serious. We're going to win this, Noah. The board meeting, the culture change, all of it. We have to. We will, he said, with more confidence than he felt. Together. After she left, Noah checked on Mia one final time. She was sprawled in her typical sleeping position, Spike the Stegosaurus clutched tight. He kissed her forehead gently, careful not to wake her. In his own room, Noah pulled up the presentation they'd built. Slide after slide of pain, proof, and possibility. It was powerful work, necessary work, but it was also terrifying in its implications. They were about to go to war with some of the most powerful people in the company. People who'd built their careers on the old model, who had everything to lose if that model was dismantled. The resistance would be fierce, potentially career-ending. But then Noah thought about Lucas's journal entry, about working yourself so hard you couldn't think straight. He thought about the 400 people who'd trusted them enough to share their stories. He thought about Mia and the kind of workplace he wanted to exist when she eventually entered the professional world. Some fights were worth the risk. His phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about the board meeting. What if we're not ready? Noah typed back. We're as ready as we're going to be. You've built an airtight case. Trust the work. I trust the work. I don't trust myself not to lose my temper when they start defending the indefensible. Then lose your temper, Noah wrote. Strategic anger can be powerful. You're fighting for people's lives. That deserves passion. A longer pause, then, Lucas would have loved this. The whole crusade. He always wanted to fix broken systems. Then we fix it for him. And for everyone else who didn't get the chance. Thank you for being in this with me, she wrote. I couldn't do it alone. You're not alone. Not anymore. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday morning at 9, giving them 4 days to refine their approach and steel themselves for battle. The task force spent those days in intensive preparation, running through potential objections and crafting responses. Margaret proved invaluable in predicting board dynamics. She'd sat in enough executive meetings to know exactly how power played out in those rooms. Chen will go after credibility, she warned during a practice session. He'll question the validity of anonymous testimonials, suggest people are lying or exaggerating for attention. We counter with the independent investigator's methodology, Evelyn responded immediately. Dr. Torres cross-referenced testimonials with medical records, HR complaints, and performance data. Nothing goes in the final report without corroboration. What about the financial argument? Sarah Martinez asked. Can they dismiss that? They'll try, Noah said. Argue that short-term costs justify long-term growth, that we need to sacrifice now for future success. Then we show them companies that grew faster by treating people humanely, Evelyn said. I've compiled case studies from 5 competitors who implemented sustainable working conditions and saw productivity increase, not decrease. Real data, not theory. They practiced until everyone could anticipate objections and respond without hesitation. But beneath the preparation, Noah could see the tension building in Evelyn. She was winding tighter each day, the anger and grief and determination coiling into something that could either fuel her or destroy her. Thursday night, Noah found her in the task force workspace at 9 o'clock, still reviewing slides. Go home, he said gently. One more pass through the data. Evelyn. He closed her laptop carefully. You know this presentation backwards and forwards. You could deliver it in your sleep. What you need now isn't more preparation. It's rest. I can't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I see Lucas. See him in that morgue. See everything we're fighting against. Her voice cracked. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I break down in front of the board and prove everyone right who said I'm too young, too emotional, not fit for this position? Noah sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You want to know what I think? Tell me. I think your grief and anger are strengths, not weaknesses. I think the fact that you feel this deeply is exactly why you're the right person to lead this change. You're not fighting for abstract principles. You're fighting for your brother, for everyone like him. That passion is what makes this authentic. The board won't see it that way. Some of them won't, but some of them will. And the ones who don't? Noah's voice hardened. They're part of the problem. Their dismissal of legitimate emotion is exactly the toxic pattern we're trying to dismantle. Evelyn leaned against him slightly, exhaustion finally overwhelming her defenses. I'm scared, Noah. What if we fail? What if nothing changes? Then we try again and again, until it does change. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, offering comfort without expectation. But I don't think we're going to fail. I think tomorrow is going to be hard and messy and painful, but I think we're going to win. They sat in silence for a long moment, 2 people who'd been carrying impossible weight finally learning to share the burden. Concert tomorrow night, Evelyn said eventually. After the board meeting. Win or lose, we're going to that show. Agreed? Agreed. What did you find? Small jazz club, local band, nothing famous, the kind of place where you can actually breathe and think. She pulled back to look at him. Bring Mia if you want. They do early shows that are family-friendly. She'd love that, though fair warning, her taste in music is exclusively dinosaur-themed educational songs right now. Evelyn laughed, the sound breaking some of the tension. Perfect. We'll convert her to jazz. Good luck with that. Noah drove her home personally, not trusting her exhausted state behind the wheel. She lived in a sleek high-rise downtown, the kind of place that screamed expensive and empty. He walked her up to make sure she actually went inside instead of returning to the office. Sleep, he ordered at her door. Real sleep. At least 6 hours. You're very bossy for someone who's technically my employee. You gave me authority over workplace culture. Your well-being is part of that culture. Noah smiled. Besides, someone has to take care of you. Might as well be me. Something shifted in Evelyn's expression. Surprise, maybe? Or gratitude? Like she'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone care about her welfare without wanting something in return. Good night, Noah, she said softly. Good night, Evelyn. Tomorrow, we change everything. Tomorrow, we change everything, she echoed. Noah drove home through quiet city streets, his mind already on the battle ahead. The presentation was ready. The data was irrefutable. The moral case was clear. Now they just had to deliver it without being destroyed in the process. At home, he checked on Mia one final time, then lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep felt impossible with adrenaline already coursing through his system. His phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Still can't sleep. Keep running through every possible disaster scenario. Stop catastrophizing. We've done the work. Trust it. Easy for you to say. You're not the one standing in front of the board. I'll be right there beside you, Noah wrote. You're not doing this alone. Remember that. Thank you. For everything. For believing this matters. For believing I can do this. I don't believe you can do this, Noah typed. I know you can. There's a difference. A pause, then a final message. See you tomorrow. Let's burn it all down and build something better. Let's do exactly that. Noah set his phone aside and closed his eyes, Sarah's voice echoing in his memory. Don't let grief destroy you. Promise me you'll actually live. Tomorrow wasn't just about reforming a company. It was about honoring everyone who'd been broken by systems that valued profit over people. It was about creating a world where no one else's Lucas died driving home exhausted, where no one else's Sarah left behind a grieving partner and confused child. It was about transformation born from tragedy. And for the first time in 4 years, Noah believed they might actually succeed. Friday morning arrived with crystalline clarity, the kind of spring day that felt too beautiful for the battle ahead. Noah woke before his alarm, adrenaline already flooding his system. He went through the motions of his morning routine mechanically, shower, coffee, waking Mia with tickles that made her giggle. Big day today, Daddy? She asked over cereal, reading his tension with the intuition children seem to possess. Very big day. I'm trying to help make my work a better place for everyone. Like a superhero? Noah smiled despite his nerves. More like someone who's really tired of people being treated badly and finally has the chance to do something about it. That sounds like a superhero to me, Mia said matter-of-factly, returning her attention to her cereal. He dropped her at kindergarten with extra-long hugs, then drove to quantum dynamics with his hands tight on the steering wheel. The board meeting was scheduled for 9, giving him 30 minutes to meet with Evelyn and do final preparations. She was already in her office when he arrived, wearing a sharp charcoal suit that looked like armor. But Noah could see the tremor in her hands as she shuffled papers, the tension in her shoulders. How are you holding up? He asked, closing the door behind him. Terrified. Furious. Ready to burn everything down. Evelyn looked up at him, and her eyes were fierce. Tell me we're doing the right thing. We're doing the only thing, the necessary thing. Noah moved closer, taking her shaking hands in his steady ones. You've built an irrefutable case. You have truth and data, and 400 people's trust on your side. They can fight back, but they can't win. Not against this. Chen already sent me an email this morning. 3 paragraphs about proceeding cautiously, not making rash decisions based on emotional reactions to tragic but isolated incidents. Her voice dripped with contempt. He's already trying to frame Lucas as an anomaly. Then you destroy that narrative in the first 5 minutes. Show them the patterns, the systematic nature, the fact that Lucas was the visible casualty of a culture that's been destroying people for years. Noah squeezed her hands. You've got this. And I'll be right there, backing every word. The boardroom was on the executive floor, a massive space with windows overlooking the city and a table that could seat 20. When Noah and Evelyn entered at 8:55, 7 board members were already seated. Richard Chen sat at the far end, his expression carefully neutral. Margaret had positioned herself in the middle, offering Evelyn a small nod of support. The others, venture capitalists, tech industry veterans, one former CEO, watched with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Evelyn took her position at the head of the table, connecting her laptop to the presentation screen with steady hands. Noah sat to her right, close enough to offer support, but far enough to make clear this was her presentation. At exactly 9 o'clock, Evelyn began. 4 years ago, my brother Lucas Cross died in a car accident after working an overnight shift at this company. He was 26 years old. He fell asleep at the wheel because he'd been working 18-hour days for 2 weeks straight, trying to meet a deadline that executive leadership at the time deemed more important than his well-being. The screen behind her showed Lucas's photo, young, smiling, alive. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. When I became CEO 8 months ago, I promised myself 2 things. First, that I would understand exactly what happened and why. Second, that I would make sure it never happened again. Evelyn's voice was controlled steel. Today I'm presenting the findings of a comprehensive investigation into workplace culture at Quantum Dynamics. What we found is that my brother's death was not an isolated tragedy. It was the inevitable result of systematic exploitation. She clicked to the next slide. Statistics on working hours, burnout rates, turnover costs. The numbers were damning. Richard Chen cleared his throat. Ms. Cross, with respect, the tech industry is inherently demanding. Our competitors face similar challenges. Our competitors who treat employees humanely are outperforming us, Evelyn interrupted, her tone sharp. I have case studies from 5 companies who implemented sustainable working conditions and saw productivity increase by an average of 23% while reducing turnover costs by 40%. This isn't about coddling people. It's about basic business intelligence. She clicked through slides showing competitor data, financial analysis, productivity metrics. Every argument anticipated, every objection countered before it could fully form. Then came the testimonials. Evelyn had chosen 10 to present in detail, representative examples from the 400 they'd collected. She read each one aloud with devastating clarity. The software engineer who'd miscarried, the father who'd lost custody, the woman passed over for promotion because she maintained boundaries, the man who'd contemplated suicide in the office bathroom. By the 5th testimonial, 2 board members had tears in their eyes. By the 8th, even Chen had gone pale. These aren't isolated incidents, Evelyn said, her voice rough with emotion now. These are patterns, systematic failures, a culture that measures dedication through suffering and punishes self-preservation as weakness. And every single person in this room is complicit. That's an unfair characterization, one of the venture capitalists started. Is it? Evelyn's eyes blazed. You've been receiving quarterly reports for years. You've seen the turnover numbers, the employee satisfaction scores, the increasing recruitment costs. You had access to all the same data I'm showing you now. You chose not to look deeper because the financial returns were acceptable. You prioritized profit over people, and people died. The silence in the room was absolute. I'm not here to assign blame, Evelyn continued, her voice softening slightly. I'm here to demand change, real, structural, immediate change. And I'm here to tell you that this change will happen whether you support it or not. The only question is whether you want to be part of building something better or whether you want to be remembered as the people who defended a system that destroyed lives. She clicked to the final slide, a comprehensive reform proposal. New working hour policies, mandatory mental health support, restructured promotion criteria that rewarded sustainable excellence rather than self-destruction, independent oversight to prevent retaliation, and a memorial fund in Lucas's name to support employees facing personal crises. This is non-negotiable, Evelyn said flatly. I have majority control of this company. I can implement these changes with or without board approval. I'm presenting them to you as a courtesy and because I believe leadership should be collaborative when possible. But make no mistake, this is happening. Richard Chen finally found his voice. Ms. Cross, while I appreciate the thoroughness of your investigation, I have serious concerns about the methodology. Anonymous testimonials can be exaggerated or fabricated. Without verification, every testimonial was corroborated by an independent investigator, Noah interjected, his first contribution to the meeting. Medical records, HR complaints, performance reviews, email documentation. Nothing made it into the final report without multiple sources of verification. Dr. Amanda Torse, a former organizational psychologist with 20 years of experience, personally validated each account. Her full methodology report is available for your review. And the financial projections? Another board member asked. You're proposing significant additional hiring which will impact margins in the short term. Short-term margin decrease of approximately 8%, Evelyn confirmed. Long-term profitability increase of at least 15% based on reduced turnover, improved productivity, and enhanced company reputation, will attract better talent, retain institutional knowledge, and deliver higher quality work. The business case is sound. Margaret spoke up for the first time. I'd like to add my perspective as someone who's been with this company for 12 years. I've watched us hemorrhage talented people because we worked them to the point of breaking. I've seen projects fail because teams were too exhausted to think clearly. I've personally experienced the health consequences of unsustainable working conditions. Her voice wavered slightly but remained firm. What Evelyn is proposing isn't radical. It's basic human decency applied to corporate structure. And frankly, I'm ashamed it took someone's death for us to have this conversation. Another board member, an older woman named Patricia Huang, who'd been mostly silent, leaned forward. I've been in tech for 35 years. I've seen the industry evolve, and I've seen it get progressively more toxic. We used to celebrate innovation and creativity. Now we celebrate who can survive the most punishment. She looked directly at Evelyn. I support these reforms completely. It's past time. One by one, other board members voiced their positions, some enthusiastically supportive, others reluctantly acknowledging the necessity, a few remaining skeptical but unwilling to openly oppose the CEO who held majority control. Richard Chen was the last to speak. His expression had shifted from defensive to something more complex, resignation mixed with what might have been shame. I don't agree with everything in this proposal, he said carefully, but I acknowledge that the current system is unsustainable. I'll support the reforms on a trial basis with the understanding that we'll evaluate impact on business metrics quarterly. It was an enthusiastic endorsement, but it was capitulation. Evelyn had won. Thank you all for your input, Evelyn said, her voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who'd just fought the battle of her life. Implementation begins Monday. Noah Reed will continue leading the Culture Reform Task Force with full executive authority. Any concerns about the process should be directed to me personally. The meeting adjourned just before 11. Board members filed out in subdued clusters, some stopping to speak quietly with Evelyn, others leaving quickly, as if desperate to escape the emotional weight of what they'd witnessed. When the room finally emptied, except for Noah and Evelyn, she slumped into her chair like her strings had been cut. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. You did it, Noah corrected gently. That was the most powerful thing I've ever witnessed. You gave Lucas a voice. You gave 400 people justice. You changed everything. Evelyn's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down her face as 4 years of grief and rage and determination poured out. Noah moved to her side, wrapping his arms around her as she sobbed into his shoulder. He should be here, she choked out. Lucas should be here to see this, to know that his death meant something, to know that we fixed it. I think he knows, Noah said softly. Wherever he is, I think he's proud of you. They stayed like that for a long time. Two people who'd been carrying impossible weight finally allowing themselves to feel the full scope of what they'd accomplished and what it had cost. Eventually, Evelyn pulled back, wiping her eyes with shaking hands. I look like a disaster. You look like someone who just went to war and won. Noah smiled. How do you feel? Exhausted, relieved, terrified about implementation. She laughed shakily. Also starving. I couldn't eat this morning because I was too nervous. Then we're getting lunch, real lunch, somewhere far from this building where we can breathe. They went to the same sandwich shop where they'd eaten weeks ago, when all of this was just beginning. The spring afternoon was warm and bright, the city alive with Friday energy. People rushed past, focused on their own dramas, unaware that two exhausted people sitting at an outdoor table had just restructured an entire company's foundation. "What happens now?" Evelyn asked, halfway through her sandwich. "Now we do the hard work of actual implementation," Noah said. "Policy changes are just the beginning. We need to shift culture, which means changing hearts and minds, one person at a time." "That sounds impossible." "It probably is, but we're going to try anyway." He smiled at her. "And we're going to do it while maintaining reasonable working hours, taking actual time off, and modeling the behavior we're demanding from everyone else." "Speaking of which, concert tonight. You still coming?" "Wouldn't miss it. Mia's very excited. She's been practicing her jazz face, which apparently involves a lot of serious nodding." Evelyn laughed, and the sound was lighter than Noah had heard from her before. Like something had loosened in her chest during the board meeting, some pressure valve finally released. They spent the afternoon working through implementation logistics with the task force, but at 5 o'clock sharp, Noah shut his laptop decisively. "We're done for today," he announced to the room. "Everyone go home. Spend time with people you love. Do something that has nothing to do with work." "That's a direct order from your task force leader." Sarah Martinez grinned. "You're really embracing this authority thing." "Someone has to model good behavior." Noah looked pointedly at Evelyn. "That includes the CEO." I'm leaving," Evelyn said, raising her hands in surrender. "Meeting you at the jazz club at 7. Noah picked up Mia from Mrs. Patterson's house, where she'd gone after kindergarten. She was vibrating with excitement about the concert, having extracted every possible detail about what to expect. "Will there be trumpets?" she demanded as Noah helped her into her car seat. "Probably." "What about saxophones?" "Very likely." "Are saxophones the ones that are gold and curvy?" "That's right." Mia nodded seriously. "Okay, I'm ready for jazz." The club was in a converted warehouse downtown, intimate and warm with exposed brick and soft lighting. Evelyn was already there when they arrived, and she'd changed into jeans and a flowing top that made her look younger, less like a CEO, and more like someone who might actually know how to have fun. "Mia," she greeted them warmly, "I'm so glad you could come." "Daddy says there's going to be saxophones," Mia informed her gravely. "I'm very interested in saxophones." "Then you're in luck. The band tonight has an excellent saxophone player." They found a table near the back where Mia could see the stage but wasn't too close to the speakers. The band was setting up, 4 musicians arranging instruments and testing sound levels. The early show crowd was small and relaxed, a mix of families and young couples, and people who looked like they'd come straight from office jobs. When the music started, Mia was transfixed. Her eyes went wide as the saxophone player launched into an improvised solo, the notes flowing and dancing in ways that made Noah understand why people called it conversation. The drummer created rhythms that felt like heartbeats. The pianist added layers of complexity, and the bass player held everything together with steady warmth. Noah watched Mia watching the music, saw her little body swaying unconsciously, and felt something in his chest expand. This was what Sarah had meant when she'd begged him to live, not just survive. These moments of beauty and connection, of introducing his daughter to new experiences, of being present enough to actually feel joy instead of just checking boxes. He glanced at Evelyn and found her watching him with a soft smile. "What?" he asked. "You look happy. You really happy. It's nice to see." "I feel happy," Noah admitted, surprised by the truth of it. "For the first time in years, I feel like I'm actually participating in my life instead of just enduring it." "Same." Evelyn turned her attention back to the music. "Thank you for pushing me to do this, to remember there's more to existence than work and obligation." Between sets, Mia insisted on showing Evelyn her best jazz dancing, which involved a lot of interpretive arm movements and spinning. Other parents smiled indulgently as she performed her impromptu concert in the small space beside their table. "She's amazing," Evelyn said, watching Mia with something that looked like longing. "So confident and creative and completely herself." "She gets that from her mother," Noah said. "Sarah never cared what other people thought. She just existed fully in whatever moment she was in. I'm trying to teach Mia to keep that even when the world tells her to be smaller. You're doing an incredible job. During the second set, Mia climbed into Noah's lap and settled there, her energy finally depleting. She listened to the music with heavy-lidded eyes, occasionally asking whispered questions about what instrument was making which sound. By the time the concert ended, she was fully asleep against Noah's chest. He carried her carefully to the car while Evelyn walked beside them through the cool evening air. "Thank you for tonight," Evelyn said as they reached the parking lot. "For the music, for sharing Mia with me, for everything." "Thank you for winning the war today," Noah replied. "You were extraordinary in that board meeting, fierce and strategic and completely uncompromising." "We both were. Partners in revolution." She smiled. "What happens Monday?" "Monday we start building the world we fought for today. Together." "Together," she echoed. Noah drove home with Mia snoring softly in her car seat, the city lights streaming past his windows. When they arrived, he carried his daughter inside and tucked her into bed still in her clothes, too tired to wake her for proper bedtime routine. In his own room, Noah pulled up his phone and looked at the photo he'd saved from 4 years ago, the team photo from the Aurora project with Lucas grinning in the center. For the first time, looking at that image didn't bring crushing guilt. Instead, it brought something like peace. "We did it, Lucas," he whispered to the photo. "We fixed the system that took you from us. You didn't die for nothing." His phone buzzed, a text from Evelyn. "Can't sleep again, but this time it's good restlessness. Keep thinking about what we're going to build. The possibilities feel endless." Noah typed back, "Get some sleep anyway. We've got a lot of work ahead and you'll need energy," says the man who's probably also awake. Guilty. "But I'm heading to bed now. You should too. Deal." "Good night, Noah. Thank you for being in this fight with me. Thank you for seeing me as more than just a CEO or Lucas's sister. Thank you for becoming my friend." Noah felt his throat tighten reading those words. Somewhere over the past weeks, they'd built something real. A partnership forged in shared grief and determination, tempered by vulnerability and mutual support. "Thank you for the same," he wrote. "Sleep well. Tomorrow we start building something better. Tomorrow we start building something better," she confirmed. The weeks that followed were exactly as hard as Margaret had predicted. Policy changes were the easy part. Shifting culture required patience, persistence, and constant vigilance against people sliding back into old patterns. Some employees embraced the new approach immediately, relieved to finally have permission to maintain boundaries. Others resisted, convinced that working less meant caring less. Their identities so tied to self-sacrifice that sustainable practices felt like failure. The task force became the heart of the transformation, identifying resistance points and addressing them through education, modeling, and sometimes just stubborn insistence that change was happening whether people liked it or not. Richard Chen remained skeptical, but followed the new policies, his team slowly adapting to 45-hour weeks. Margaret became an unexpected champion, sharing her story at company meetings and encouraging others to value their well-being. 3 months after the board meeting, Evelyn unveiled the Lucas Cross Memorial Initiative, a comprehensive support program for employees facing personal crises, medical emergencies, family deaths, mental health challenges. The program provided paid leave, counseling resources, and flexible work arrangements to help people navigate difficult times without sacrificing their careers. At the launch event, Evelyn spoke about her brother to the entire company for the first time. She showed photos of Lucas, read from his journal entries, shared the full story of his death, and her determination to ensure it never happened again. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. "My brother believed work should improve lives, not destroy them," Evelyn concluded, her voice steady despite the emotion. "He believed in building systems that served people instead of consuming them. This initiative honors that belief. It says that when you're struggling, this company will support you instead of abandoning you. It says that your humanity matters more than your productivity. It says that we've learned from tragedy and we're committed to doing better." The applause was thunderous, sustained, genuine. After the event, Noah found Evelyn in her office, staring out the window at the city below. "You okay?" he asked. "Better than okay." She turned to face him, and her smile was real. "I think Lucas would have approved. I know he would have." 6 months into the transformation, Quantum Dynamics released its quarterly results. Despite Richard Chen's predictions, productivity was up 14%. Employee retention had improved by 37%. Customer satisfaction scores had climbed to their highest levels in 5 years. The business case for humane working conditions had proven itself irrefutably. The board meeting that quarter was dramatically different from the battle in spring. Chen actually smiled when presenting the financial data, admitting that the reforms had exceeded his expectations. Several board members proposed expanding the Lucas Cross initiative to include proactive mental health support, not just crisis intervention. "I was wrong," Chen said directly to Evelyn. "I thought sustainable working conditions would make us less competitive. Instead, they've made us stronger. I apologize for my initial resistance." The apology was awkward but genuine, and Evelyn accepted it with grace. That evening, Noah and Evelyn had fallen into the habit of Friday dinners, sometimes with Mia, sometimes just the two of them, always at small restaurants where they could decompress from the week and remember they were people beyond their professional roles. "We did it," Evelyn said over wine and pasta at their usual Italian place. "Actually did it. Changed an entire company culture and proved it could work." "You did it," Noah corrected. "I just supported and occasionally prevented you from working yourself to death." "We did it together," she insisted. "Partners in revolution, remember?" "Partners in revolution," Noah agreed, raising his glass. They talked about next steps, expanding the cultural reforms to address other issues like diversity, equity, psychological safety. Building on the foundation they'd created to make quantum dynamics not just sustainable, but genuinely excellent. But they also talked about painting and concerts and Mia's latest dinosaur theories, about the books they were reading and the movies they wanted to see, and the fact that Evelyn had started taking pottery classes on Thursday evenings just because she enjoyed the tactile creativity. "I went on a date last week," Evelyn mentioned casually, and Noah felt an unexpected twist in his chest. "Yeah? How did it go?" "Terrible," she laughed. "He spent the entire dinner talking about cryptocurrency and his workout routine. I kept thinking about how much more interesting it would be to discuss literally anything else." "Did you tell him that?" "I told him I needed to leave early to review quarterly projections, which was a lie. Actually went home and painted for 3 hours instead." She smiled sheepishly. "I'm not very good at dating. Keep comparing everyone to—" She stopped abruptly. "To what?" Noah prompted gently. Evelyn looked at him with something complicated in her expression. "To the kind of connection that feels easy, where I don't have to perform or prove anything, where someone sees me as a whole person, not just a CEO or a potential partner." The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. "Evelyn, I know," she said quickly. "You're not ready. You're still healing from Sarah. You have Mia to think about. I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted you to know that what we've built, it matters to me beyond the professional stuff." Noah's heart was racing. The truth was he'd been feeling the same pull for weeks now, the way Evelyn had become essential to his life in ways that transcended their working partnership. But he'd been pushing it down, convinced it was too soon, too complicated, too risky. "I care about you too," he said carefully. "More than I probably should given our working relationship and the fact that we're both disasters who are still learning how to be functional humans." "So we're in agreement that we're disasters. Complete disasters." Noah smiled. "But maybe we're disasters who make each other slightly less disastrous?" "I'll accept that characterization." Evelyn's expression grew more serious. "I'm not asking for anything to change right now. I just wanted to be honest about what I'm feeling. You've taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness." "Can I be honest too?" "Please." Noah took a deep breath, stepping into the same kind of vulnerability that had once terrified him. "I think about you constantly. I look forward to our dinners more than anything else in my week. Mia asks about you every single day. When something good happens, you're the first person I want to tell. When something's hard, you're who I want beside me." Evelyn's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "But I'm also terrified," Noah continued, "of moving too fast, of screwing this up, of introducing someone into Mia's life who might not stay, of letting myself feel things I'm not sure I'm ready to feel." "So what do we do?" "We take it slow," Noah said. "We keep building what we have. We stay honest with each other. We don't rush into anything, but we don't run away from it either. I can do slow, Evelyn agreed. I'm good at patient strategic planning. This isn't a business strategy. I know, but I'm applying the same principles: clear communication, mutual respect, adapting as circumstances evolve. She reached across the table and took his hand. I'm willing to wait for whatever this becomes. Because what we have right now, this friendship and partnership and understanding, it's already more meaningful than most relationships I've had. Noah squeezed her hand, feeling the rightness of this moment despite all his fears. Same. They left the restaurant holding hands, a simple gesture that felt monumental. Noah drove Evelyn home, and at her door she kissed his cheek softly. "Good night, partner in revolution," she said. "Good night," Noah replied, his heart full in ways he'd forgotten were possible. A year after that devastating Friday night conversation in the conference room, Quantum Dynamics held its annual company celebration. The event had been completely redesigned under the new cultural approach, held during work hours so people with families could attend, with activities for children, celebration of work-life balance achievements alongside professional accomplishments. Evelyn took the stage to thunderous applause, looking poised and confident in a way that spoke of someone who'd finally grown into their authority. A year ago, I stood in a boardroom and demanded that we transform this company's culture from the ground up, she began. Many people thought I was naive. Some thought I was destructive. A few thought I might actually succeed. She smiled at the crowd, and her eyes found Noah's in the audience. He stood in the back with Mia on his shoulders so she could see, both of them grinning. What I've learned this year is that changing culture isn't about policies or mandates. It's about people having the courage to demand better and the persistence to make it real. It's about choosing humanity over productivity metrics. It's about believing that success and sustainability aren't opposites, they're partners. The crowd erupted in applause. We've proven something important here, Evelyn continued, that treating people with dignity makes them more productive, not less. That supporting people through crises makes them more loyal, not entitled. That building a culture of care creates better outcomes for everyone. Employees, customers, shareholders. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. My brother Lucas didn't get to see this transformation, but everything we've built this year honors his memory and his belief that systems should serve people, not consume them. The Lucas Cross Memorial Initiative has supported 73 employees through personal crises this year. 73 people who might have quit or burned out or worse, who instead got the help they needed and came back stronger. More applause, people in the crowd visibly crying. So thank you, Evelyn said. Thank you to the task force who fought beside me. Thank you to the employees who trusted us enough to share your stories. Thank you to the leadership who chose to evolve instead of resist. Thank you to everyone who believed we could build something better. Her eyes met Noah's again, and she smiled. And thank you to the partners who remind us that we don't have to do hard things alone, that vulnerability is strength, that caring for each other is the foundation of everything worth building. The celebration continued for hours. Mia played with other employees' children, shrieking with delight during the various games and activities. Noah spent time with his team, people who no longer looked exhausted and desperate, but engaged and energized. As the event wound down, Evelyn found Noah helping Mia construct an elaborate building out of oversized blocks. She's got architectural talent, Evelyn observed, crouching down to Mia's level. It's a dinosaur museum, Mia explained seriously, with special rooms for each type of dinosaur so they don't fight. That's very thoughtful planning. I know. Mia returned to her construction, then added casually, Daddy says you might come to my birthday party next month. Are you coming? Evelyn glanced at Noah, who smiled encouragingly. I would love to come to your birthday party, Evelyn said. What are we celebrating? I'm turning 6, and we're having a dinosaur theme because, obviously. Mia rolled her eyes at the adult's potential failure to understand the obvious. Obviously, Evelyn agreed gravely. Later, after Mia had finally been pried away from her block construction and was drowsing in Noah's arms, Evelyn walked them to their car. That was a beautiful speech, Noah said. Lucas would have been proud. I hope so. Evelyn smiled. I feel like we've actually done what we set out to do. Changed something fundamental. Made his death mean something beyond just loss. You did more than that. You transformed yourself too. The person who stood in front of the company today isn't the same person who was working herself to death a year ago. Neither are you, Evelyn pointed out. You're leaving work at reasonable hours, spending real time with Mia, painting terrible watercolors with me on Sunday afternoons, actually living instead of just surviving. We've both come a long way. And we're just getting started. Evelyn reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture Noah had learned meant she was about to say something important. I meant what I said in the speech, about partners, about not doing hard things alone. I know you did. Noah, She paused, gathering courage. This year has been the hardest and best of my life. The transformation, the company, the friendship we've built. But what I keep coming back to is that I don't want to keep calling it just friendship, because what I feel when I'm with you is so much more than that. Noah's heart was thundering. Mia had fallen completely asleep against his shoulder, her breath warm and steady against his neck. I feel it too, he admitted. I have for months, but I needed time to be sure, to know I was ready, to know that what I was feeling wasn't just gratitude or grief or the comfort of not being alone. And now? Now I'm sure. Noah smiled at her. I'm still terrified, still worried about all the ways this could be complicated, but I'm also certain that you've become essential to my life, that I want to see where this goes, that I'm ready to try. Evelyn's face lit up with joy, so pure it made her look years younger. Really? Really. Slow and careful because we both have work to do and Mia to consider, and about 1,000 ways we could potentially mess this up. But yes, I want to try building something more with you. She reached up and kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Mia stirred against Noah's shoulder but didn't wake, and for a moment the three of them were a unit, a family in the making, still fragile but full of possibility. I love you, Evelyn whispered when they broke apart. I should probably wait to say that, but I've spent a year learning that honesty matters more than perfect timing. I love you too, Noah replied, the words feeling both terrifying and exactly right. I didn't think I'd ever say that to someone again, after Sarah. But here we are. Here we are. They stood in the parking lot as the sun set, three people who'd survived different kinds of loss and found each other in the aftermath. The road ahead would be complicated, blending families, navigating a relationship built from professional partnership, continuing the hard work of cultural transformation. But for the first time in years, Noah felt ready for complicated, ready for possibility, ready to actually live the life Sarah had begged him to build. 6 months later, on a Saturday afternoon in autumn, Noah and Evelyn stood in the cemetery where Lucas was buried. Mia played quietly nearby, old enough now to understand graveyards were serious places, but young enough to not fully grasp what they meant. We brought you the quarterly report, Evelyn said, setting papers on Lucas's headstone like an offering. Productivity up 22%, turnover down 41%, employee satisfaction at an all-time high. The Lucas Cross Memorial Initiative has now supported over 200 people. We're implementing the program company-wide across all divisions. Noah added his own offering, a printout of an email from a young engineer thanking the task force for creating a culture where he felt safe asking for help when his anxiety became unmanageable. The kind of email Lucas might have written if he'd had the same support. We did it, Noah said simply. We fixed what was broken. We built something better, and we're going to keep building it, keep improving it, keep making sure no one else gets lost the way you did. Evelyn leaned against Noah's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her. They stood there in the fading autumn light, honoring the brother who'd died and the culture they'd built from that tragedy. Tell me about Lucas, Mia said, appearing suddenly at their side with the directness of children. I know he was important, but I don't know why. Evelyn crouched down to Mia's level, smiling through tears. Lucas was my brother. He was kind and brilliant, and he loved building things that helped people. He worked too hard, and the people in charge didn't protect him, and that's why he's not here anymore. That's sad, Mia said solemnly. It is sad. But you know what? Because Lucas died, your daddy and I decided to make sure other people wouldn't get hurt the same way. We changed all the rules at work to make things safer and kinder, So Lucas's story has a sad ending, but it also has a hopeful middle part, where good things grew from something terrible. Mia considered this with the gravity she brought to important concepts. Like how flowers grow from dirt. Exactly like that, Evelyn agreed, pulling the little girl into a hug. Something beautiful growing from darkness. They left the cemetery as the sun set, the three of them walking hand in hand toward the parking lot. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The ongoing work of maintaining cultural change, the complexity of building a family from broken pieces, the daily effort of choosing life over mere survival. But tonight, they were together. They were healing. They were building something that honored the past while reaching toward the future. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when Noah tucked Mia into bed and returned to find Evelyn painting at the kitchen table, he could almost hear Sarah's voice. "This is what I meant. This is living." He would smile then and kiss Evelyn's paint-smudged cheek and feel grateful beyond words for the strange, painful, beautiful path that had led him here. From tragedy to transformation, from grief to grace, from surviving to truly, fully living. It hadn't been the ending Noah expected when Evelyn first asked if he was upset with her that Friday night. But it was the ending he needed, the ending they all deserved. And it was only the beginning,